Live from New York, it's the Monday show on Thursday. And today, we're going to just go over some boring stuff. I'm actually going to use you guys to keep me on track so that I can record a video. Um, so hopefully, I don't get sidetracked too much, but I think the topic is pretty milk toast. I think it's safe to say that we will have a relatively easy time staying on topic here. Ah, thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. I endeavor to get quality haircuts, and this one's cool because I forgot to buy. Oh crap! I gotta go back to the barber shop and buy more product, hair product. So I get this like stuff. It's like mousse, but it's better than mousse because like if let's say like you need to redo it, you just add a little bit of water and you just kind of rework it, and you can do that in the field. You can do that when you're not at home, and it's pretty sweet, but I can only buy it at the barber shop. Oh, thanks, Amber. I can only do it at the barber shop. I can only buy it there. I ordered a can of this stuff online once. It comes from Italy. Technically, yet you can't order it online, but I did anyway because when my hairstylist, when my barber said you can only get it, you can't get it online. I took that as a challenge, but it was like a $20 bottle or something like that, and then the shipping made up the rest of the cost. So yeah, I got to go physically to the barber shop. And typically, I don't need the mousse or whatever the heck it's called until until like the hair is long. And then in order to avoid getting a haircut, I'll just put more and more product in my hair. I do have a curling product that I bought in Texas, and like a styling mousse for curls, and I shipped it back home because I didn't think I could bring it on an airplane. So I just shipped it back home in a box. The lady at FedEx is like, "Oh, do you have anything in here that isn't safe?" I'm like, "Nope. I have no idea if aerosolized cans count as unsafe. Probably not. I mean, they ship it, right? But anyway, yeah. So I have that stuff, but the Italian stuff is good. hmm I mean, of course, the Italians are good with style. Moose, don't the antlers get stuck in your hair? They do, but what you do is you grind them up to a fine pulp, and it gets all sticky and stuff. And then, like I said, you could add water to fix it up at any time. In fact, you can also, what you do is you wait till shedding season. So as you know, and I'm sure you know this pop culture mechanic, because you're Canadian, and as you know, every once in a while, deer and I presume moose, they shed their antlers. In fact, the antlers have like a velvety covering on them. It's like a skin with like fine peach fuzz on it. And when they shed it, it looks like an atrocity. It looks like really nasty, but it's actually a normal process. I don't think it's painful. It might be painful, but I don't think it's particularly painful. And I think they like literally like rub the antlers against tree bark to help the process along. And then they grow a new layer of this velvety peach fuzz skin with peach fuzz on it. So yeah, that alone could probably be a product. Maybe we could like market it as an aphrodisiac. Just take the moose sheddings and be like, put it in a bottle and just pretend it's some kind of traditional Chinese medicine or something cool like that. That is good stuff. Curling gel is great stuff. It's good, great stuff. It's not just good stuff. Oh wait. Hey, the chat. Oh, I see why. Highlighting the chats only works if I click here. There we go. Oh, that's blocking my face. How dare the chat take my spotlight away? But jokes aside, I love making that joke. Like when I had Punk Waddle on a week ago, when I had David, I'm like, "You're taking my spotlight." I just love that joke. I don't mean anything by it, but like, it's like the Family Guy episode when they had the cast of Star Trek: The Next Generation on, and I forget which character is complaining about someone hogging the limelight, but that was a lot of fun. Anyway, so we're gonna do something today. Oh, excuse me, a little cold today. Anyway, we're gonna record a video right now. I'm gonna start the recorder now, and then hopefully I'll have enough stuff to edit. Now, I gotta say, the good news is like a week ago, 2, 3 weeks ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago, I was on When Deep Calls Deep. We had a great time. And I should probably go find the stream I was on because it's actually the audio on it is hilarious. And Amber knows what I'm talking about. Let's see if uh-oh, I can't click on the button. Why don't that work? All right, let me go to the window here. I want to click on something here because I want to show you something funny. All right, go to channel, and let me see if I can find the stream. Yo, Amber, do you remember if that was 12 days ago or 11? That was, yeah, 300 subscriber celebration. Okay, let me get the audio toggled here. That's a nice opening, by the way, Amber. Looks like you figured out some cool trick with the AI or something like that. Okay, there we go. We got the audio. Right. Isn't it a bumping soundtrack? I hope my sound's not too loud. But adjusting the volume on this sound interface, it's like, I'm not even kidding, it's like adjusting on a knife's edge. If I bring it any louder, it's too loud. If I make it any lower, it's too low. And right now, it's like approximately good enough. And I'm just gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna lower the volume a little bit, hoping I can normalize it. But it's very tricky. How's the audio? How's my sound? Is it good? Is it okay? Is it too loud? Let me know. Is it staticky? I honestly need to know. I mean, clearly nobody's complained, so I guess, it's not an issue. And normally I use my left monitor right now for this. So that's why it's a little tricky for me to move this down here. Okay, I can move it to my bottom monitor. Where's Floral? I want to click on his chat. And that's weird. His messages here. Oh, I see. Live chat. Pop chat. That's bizarre. That's an interesting glitch. So I got like a pop-out window and I got a non-pop-out window. And the pop-out window is like not showing Floral chat. That's funny. Like look at my bottom monitor. Bottom. See, look. All I see is Amber. Pop Culture Mechanic, and I got like a bunch of people on this monitor. Let's close the window and fix that. I wasn't expecting that, but we're gonna fix that right now. Wait a sec. Oh, I'm on the wrong channel. That explains it. See, look, see, that's Amber's channel, and this is my channel. Okay, let's fix that. There you go. Pop out chat. I gotta redo what I was doing. Let's Daisy. There we go. That's inconvenient. Now I gotta resize. Bummer. Give me a second. Yeah, I have to actually make this this big. And this time I'll remember which chat is on whose channel. Now we go to the right monitor, and we see that little white line over there. I have to resize it so that white line is gone. And this is why. There we go. Look, it's perfect. Now we don't see the white line. Everything's good. Everything's good. Everything's Gucci. Yeah.
All right. Hey, everybody. We are here because this is
more
really
or less
cool. I
hit
hit
a little bit off,
300.
I'm not gonna go crazy.
I didn't think I was gonna get like 100, and we hit 100.
Yeah. What up, some person? Good to see you,
Now
buddy.
we're at 300.
All right, now we get on topic
crazy,
here.
It's not
Well,
even been
actually on topic. I want to show you something real quick
6
about
months?
the audio
I think 6
before
months,
we proceed any
which is
further.
crazy.
So where was
But
I?
several of the
I'm gonna go
guys
to
on
Amber's
here are
stream now that
invited
I
to come
figured
by
out
and say
what
hi.
was going
Or
on with
a
my
lot
chat.
of the reason
Nothing.
why
I
I
was
hit
just
where I
mixing
hit
up
it as
chats.
fast as I did. So
I'm gonna skip to the part where I joined, which is towards
Are
the
they
tail.
doing anything to the calendar that's different, off by 20 years, for example? Because maybe I got to punch in like -20. I got to put in 20 BC to get the right
So,
year.
you hear my
to
voice?
get the right year. Maybe it lines up. Or
You hear
Earth
that?
Day for every leap year, every 4 years times.
I don't know why.
Two
I don't know
millennia,
why.
right?
I don't know why I sound like Darth
overthinking
Vader.
it, but that might be it.
I don't know why I sound like Darth Vader.
maybe.
But it'd be cool. I mean, that could be it also. Because another one is what was it? There was the Crab Nebula. It's a nebula that has like this almost looks like a gas cloud, and it what happened was in like ancient Chinese times, like what not ancient, obviously global times. It wasn't just the Chinese. Back then, Chinese astronomers documented seeing a supernova in the sky. They didn't know it was a supernova. They didn't know what it was, but in the end, you ended up with this. So that we're looking at for this it was figured out that
I fixed my audio.
Like hundreds of years ago, maybe like 1,000 years ago, there was like a period of time for like the better part of a year
testing
where
one,
extremely bright to the point that it was like as bright or about as bright as the moon, which is like insane for something that's that distant. And they correlated like the data, like
literally,
of,
like
well,
not literally, but I practically sound like Darth Vader.
Whatever era it was, and they figured out that it was probably this thing over here because after supernova, a lot of material is scattered, comes back and
I'm ready to record my video. But yeah,
you have like
so I joined Amber's stream.
Little remnant of
I'm sorry, I'm talking over myself. I joined Amber's stream. We do like a brief little hangout, right? And at some point, Punk Waddle notifies me, which I appreciate, that I sound like I swallowed the opposite of helium, like a heavy gas. Almost like when you huff canned air. Not that I don't know anything about huffing canned air, but what I do know is that if you take canned air without huffing it, you could still make yourself sound like Darth Vader. I knew a guy at an old job, he did the trick, and I know he wasn't getting high because if he was, he'd be passing out. Like that canned air stuff will get you like almost as bad as sniffing glue. Almost as bad. Anyway, that's a different topic. We're not going to talk about that right now. But it's funny, actually. I was reading about Japan. Apparently, back in the day, they did find plastic bags on the floor of the campus at the University of Tokyo, and apparently that was the thing to do, was to use bags and paint thinner. But I digress. So anyway, my point is, yeah, that was a random issue. The solution was reboot your computer. But I thought that was pretty funny that I sounded like Darth Vader while joining that stream, and people who didn't know me probably thought I sounded like that. And then people who knew me were like, he sounds off. And there was literally nothing I could do on my end about it, short of rebooting my computer. I didn't even bother fixing it. It's just that somewhere between then and the next time I streamed, I restarted my computer. And, the problem didn't come back. So, yeah, I don't know what caused it. I was not running voice mod. So, anyway, now we're going to get on to the topic at hand. But before we do, let's see what the Twitter chat is saying. Chit chat. I didn't sound right, but I didn't mean it the way it sounded. DJ I thought I was using a voice changer, but I wasn't. Because it's like, the only voice I use is the PD voice. I almost never change it. And I better make sure I back up the settings or get a screenshot of the settings, because it could be pretty hard to replicate the exact settings if you lose it. That's why in the movie Peacekeepers, the Farscape movie, why Pilot doesn't sound quite right. On top of that, they filmed the show, I think, in Australia, and they do things at 25 frames a second, so it's a lower frame rate over here. I don't see how that would affect the audio, but in theory, it might. I haven't done a lot of reading on it. I just read a forum post about it once. I can hear another stream. Yes, you can. The one where I was talking like Darth Vader. Well, it was playing music, then I was talking like Darth Vader. It's a good thing I have a long intro video. Yeah, I appreciate that. I borrowed that. You know who has a cool intro video? Yo, LCX. Okay, before we get onto the topic at hand. See, I sidetrack myself. This is cool, yo. This is freaking cool. LCX now has an opening theme. I forgot. I was gonna ask for permission to play this, but so maybe I won't play the whole thing. But you guys can subscribe to LCX if you want to hear her new intro song in its entirety. For now, I'll just play part of it. This shit was cool. And she owns it. She pwns it.
Hello.
She looked at the terms and conditions.
And I am a VTuber who primarily plays.
She's very professorial in the beginning here. Just laying down the guidelines up front. Okay, so let's get that intro song there because it's cool. I hope I'm not violating any reasonable standards here by just playing this song, but I'm sure we could play part of it. I'm pretty sure I won't get sued for this. I'm reasonably sure I won't get sued for this. I mean, it's possible. L is a legal scholar, so it is actually within the realm of possibility, but just because after hearing Amber's song, now I want to play this song.
For the day, game, or the minute.
Okay, here.
So let us, before we begin, Tales of Gracias. Hello, Wolfpack. Hello. To my image song once again. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Where's the chat? I lost my chat.
Step into my world, it's a pixel dream. Retro vibes and magic on every screen. Telling tales
It was a good
with a
time.
wink and a smile. Stay with me and laugh for
I know,
a
right?
while.
It's awesome.
High scores rise
He's
and hearts
Punk Water's
on
awesome.
fire. Every word lifts us higher. Adventure calls, are you ready to
This is all
go?
AI generated, by the way.
Let it flow. Cuteness always sparkle in my eyes. Reading little stories under neon skies. Level up the love.
Dude,
It's our time to shine.
I know. I know.
Forever divine.
Congratulations, Amber.
Heroes and dreams, I'll bring them to life. Plot twists, turns,
That makes
and a
sense.
hint of strife. Pixel perfect tales just for you.
It's like
Happy endings always come
an
true.
English version
High
of an
scores,
anime
rise and
opening, you
hearts
know?
on fire. Every word lifts us higher. Adventure calls, are you ready to go? I'll lead the way,
Oh, yeah.
let it flow.
I don't even, where's my watch? I gotta find my watch.
Cuteness overload, sparkle in my eyes. Weaving little stories under neon skies. Level up the love.
I gotta wear my
It's time
watch
to
in the name of
shine.
vanity.
It's forever divine.
Oh, I said I wouldn't play the whole song without permission. So anyway, yeah, tune into the channel if you want to hear the entire song. For now, to avoid a lawsuit, because, you know, Elle can be so litigious at times, litigating people for playing her music, I want to play it safe here. But jokes aside, I'm sure Elle would be very cool about it. I'm sure I will not get sued. But, hey, what's up, Elle? I was just, I was going to ask you for permission to play your song, but I forgot to, so I played your song briefly. I don't think I played the entire thing, so in the event that you see fit to litigate me, you know, maybe we can come to some kind of settlement out of court. But jokes aside, it's a bumping song. I think it's a really cool song. I forgot how you did it. I know you said how you did it in a stream yesterday, which is cool. Or was it the day before? Well, anyway, I'm glad you shared because, like, you know, you were like, even you indicated that you're not stingy. Exactly. I know. That's why I was like, yeah, I was like, you're gonna litigate me here. You know, I was like, you know, I gotta be careful here. We got a legal scholar here. Oh, we got permission. We got permission. Oh, I'm showing the wrong screen. Yeah, we'll finish out the track. Wait, am I sharing the audio? Do you guys heard the music, right? I hope so. I sometimes forget to share the audio.
Heroes and dreams, I'll
Whew,
bring them
okay,
to
audio
life.
is on.
Plot twists, turns, and a hint of strife. Pixel
Doesn't
perfect tales
matter.
just for you. Happy endings always come true.
Think about it like this.
Happy endings always come true. High scores rise and hearts on
You tuned into
fire.
Pop Culture Mechanic on
Every word
Tuesday.
lifts us higher. Adventure
That was
calls,
before
are you
today.
ready to go? I'll lead
Therefore,
the way,
Fabric
let
Folds,
flow.
it must be
Cuteness
Thursday.
overload, sparkle in my eyes.
The logic is sound.
Weaving little stories under neon skies.
I wish I could keep a beat.
It's our time to shine. LCS forever divine. Ow. Forever divine. Oh, forever divine. That was my image song, Forever Divine. The AMV is coming soon, but not right.
Oh, well, that's probably good. Anyway, what was I saying? What did I say while I was on mute? Yo, that's a good idea. I should get like a bottle of scotch or something that's not as hard. And every time I mute my microphone and start speaking, take a shot. that will either motivate me to keep forgetting or it'll motivate me to remember to unmute. I'm pretty sure it'll do the latter because I don't really like hard liquor. Like, I mean, it can be nice sometimes, but like, I don't like that sensation of burning the hair off my chest. I mean, sometimes it's nice, but it depends. Anyway, DJ, I got finished with work, so it's been a long time. Oh, I got you. Yeah, I dig that. It's all AI prompted, written by AI. Well, I believe, let me rephrase that. L commanded the AI to assist in writing the song. AI created a script for the song or lyrics, and then from there you used further prompting through whatever tool. I believe you wrote the lyrics through, I don't know if I'm allowed to divulge this. Well, I guess so. You mentioned it on your stream. Through ChatGPT, which I don't know if it's ChatGPT or ChatGPT, but sometimes people take these acronyms, they make them into words, and then that becomes popularized. Other times, that is the correct pronunciation. So I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. But anyway, yeah. So lyrics written in ChatGPT or whatever, and then the music tool, similar to Suno. Suno is an interesting option. I know a lot of people who make use of Suno. My friend Baron Orman Tag has whatchamacallit, what's that shit called? Pardon my language. He has he calls it Baron's AI Band. It's pretty cool. But anyway, so yeah, see, there we go. ChatGPT that makes sense because like logically, you would use the AI tool ChatGPT to do the script, but logically you should. Wait, I gotta click on a button here. Give me a second here. I want to do something here. I like having the chat on the bottom of the screen as well as on the top. There we go. That's better. But yeah, it makes sense that, you have it write the general script and then you tweak it, right? So you mix machine intelligence with human intelligence and it came out pretty good. And Fabric Fonts has the best avatar here, or potentially the best avatar, one of the best avatars. Aside from, pop culture mechanics, which might not be as pleasant to look at, but that's a cool avatar. Angry Canadian created that one. And that's Angry Canadian, spelled Canadien. He spells it differently because he's angry at Canada. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, Fabric Font says, good work, though. It's nice, too. So anyway, now for the topic at hand, which might not be as exciting, but, I'm hoping out with you guys here. We could power through this together, or you could help me power through this task, because sometimes I'll record a simple video, at least I think it's a simple video, and at some point I'll get stuck somewhere, or I'll hit a point where I need to edit, and instead of just pausing or stopping the recording, making a note of where I need to cut the video, I'll start from scratch again. And I still want to just power through it. I don't want to edit. I mean, I do want to edit, but I want to minimize the editing. Maybe if I do reach an impasse, I will just make a note and just save it for editing later and record a new segment, so it's let's say I record 4 minutes of good content, and then between the 4th and 5th minute, I screw up. Maybe I could make a note for myself, trim out the end, and make a new recording that continues from the 4-minute mark. But I don't know, for some reason I just find myself starting from scratch or trying to start from scratch, and then it's an endless loop. So we're going to try to work together today, and hopefully for you people watching live, you can learn a couple of new things if you stream directly from OBS, or even if you stream using Streamlabs OBS, which SLOBS, as it's abbreviated or acronymized. SLOBS is basically the same thing functionally as OBS. It just has the same options in places where I find it frustrating to find them. But if you started out with Streamlabs OBS, you'd probably find OBS more difficult. I don't think either one's more difficult. I just think that they unreasonably changed the layout of the UI in Streamlabs OBS. I really don't think it was necessary for them to change the UI, but I may be overlooking something. There may be some advantage to Streamlabs OBS. It beats the crap out of me what it is. Although I do know there are areas where there's room for improvement in OBS, like maybe storing different stream keys or having different profiles for streaming. Maybe Streamlabs OBS has that. I don't know. I've never really explored it too deeply because I avoid it like the plague. Well, not like the plague, but I do avoid it. That is true. I do. I think so. Or do I even know how to spell? I recommend everyone watch Pop Culture Mechanic because his show has Fabric Phones. Hey, what's up, Mike of Pacific 414? He was playing that Lord of the Rings game today. I forgot the name of it. Something Mordor, I believe. And pretty good game, pretty bumping action, pretty good quality streaming. And today we're going to be exploring the settings that you would use for recording a stream. I'm not even phrase it, recording a video. But there is some relationship there with how you would adjust things for streaming. And hey, kids, that's what Charlie says. Hey, what's up, Floral? Floral also says that he comes into chat, he's like, hey, kids. So it's kind of funny, I guess puppet kind think alike at times. J-pop style sounds like a cute anime opening. Ah, yep, I dig that. Shadow of Mordor. That is the name of the game. You guys, have a great night. I'm going to eat something, and what are you going to eat, Fabric Phones? Should I be asking? Never mind. Don't answer. Don't answer that. I'm going to eat something and go to bed. Not necessarily in that order. Ooh, oh shoot, I was right. See, I knew it. I'll catch the stream on video on demand. All right, no doubt. I appreciate that. Sometimes people just say that to be nice, but I believe in Fabric Phones. I believe that Fabric Phones has a 70% probability of going back to the replay and skimming through it. But if not, it's okay because there will be a subsequent upload that will be recorded tonight, hopefully. Hiya, at symbol Floral from Under a Rock, at symbol Pacific 414. Yo! All right. So for the topic at hand tonight, begin recording now. Alrighty, today or tonight, depending on when you're watching, we're going to go over how I go about recording video in OBS. And, there's many ways to go about recording video, and there's certainly many options, for controlling the way you record video. Now, to begin, oh, that's weird. I meant to mute before coughing, not... Anyway, that's okay. I can edit that part. So as I was saying, so to begin, let's take a look at my OBS settings. Man, I hope I can do a jump cut there, right? You got to sit in the same position, then you do a jump cut. But yeah, to begin, we're going to take a look at my OBS settings, which is located, OBS, the application window is on my top right monitor. And if we look at the multi-view monitor layout, you can see that we have two normal monitors stacked on top of one another to my right. We have a drawing tablet on the bottom left, which I sometimes use for the OBS window. So the theory is that, we can share whatever's on any given screen, and then the screen that I'm not sharing is going to be the one where I would typically put the OBS window. But since we're doing an instructional, we will be looking at the OBS window. But luckily we do have a solution for that infinite video loop. And you know what, just for good measure, just so you can tell that it's a window, I'm going to do this. Oh, okay, this is funny. I got a picture for you guys. Okay, shit. Pardon my language. Okay, pause recording. Pause recording. Got a funny picture for you guys. All right, you're going to love this. So, a while back, I was playing with AI image generation, like a while ago, and I was looking for, like, a thumbnail image, and I remember that this picture came up, and it's hilarious because it's an Asian girl, but you know how, like, in sci-fi movies like Total Recall and Star Trek V? I know, right, with the infinite window thing? Yeah, Ronnieception, right? Woo, that's why I love doing this. That's why I don't mind doing this. I think it's funny when, like, things move in an infinite loop. But yeah, this is what happened here. Like, it generated, like, so in Total Recall and in, like, Star Trek V, they have the triple boobed woman. It's like just a sci-fi trope of sorts, right? In this one, we got an Asian chick in nylons, but she got 3 legs. It's like a spider, yeah. So I just thought it was hilarious. So I set the window aside and I saved it for later. But then while I was pressing Alt-Tab, that came up. When I was, resizing the window, it came up in little thumbnail view. So there you guys go. That's the picture. Don't date a girl with a third leg. Why not? Why not? I mean, why not? Why not? It must be confusing crossing her legs. Look, man, for all you know, that could be a partially deformed leg. Or, I don't know, like, it's like what's that movie called? The book, Forever War, when they had the aliens with the 3 legs, you know? She might be like a Tauren in disguise. Which, actually, yeah, don't date, you're right. You know, I stand corrected. Don't date a girl with a third leg. In retrospect, she could be an alien spy from the Tauren system, which is actually located in the Aldebaran constellation, but, you know, it's complicated saying Aldebaranian, so they went with Tauren in the nomenclature. 3 legs, 3 cheeks, maybe. Yeah, necessarily, right? Logically. It does look like a spider. I get it. It looks like a spider. I totally get it. Some person asking the real questions. So yeah, yeah. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now let's get back on topic. Thank goodness we could pause the recording, which we're going to talk about the settings in OBS, which prevent you from pausing a recording. So this is kind of relevant. Okay, I was just adjusting my phone because I think it looks cooler on camera, but hey, wait. There we go. I just want to make sure. Okay, that's my desk. Oh, I know why. There we go. Ow. I'm sorry for the loud noise. I was just making some adjustments to my green tape. Eat more chicken. That's a cow. Hey, what up? Hey, wait, I found a power adapter for that Nintendo, so it's not going to be much longer before I finally get around to plugging it in. So that's kind of cool. All right, so anyway, now that we have the video unpaused, let's resume anyway. So anyway, getting back, all right. This here's my OBS window right over here. And in order to control the settings which affect the quality and the file size, for instance, we would typically go to the settings button. And then we would navigate to output or video. Now, typically when you think about video quality, you're thinking about resolution, right? Like 1080p, 720p, and stuff of that nature. And that setting is under video. And you can see here it's grayed out, but that's only part of the picture. The other aspect of video quality is dictated by the video encoder, which you are using, which would be under the output section here. But because I'm actively recording right now, I cannot change a lot of these settings. And although it's not necessary for me to change these settings, it can be very handy to be able to show you guys what the other options are. And same thing over here. You can see I can't click on any of the streaming or recording settings because we are actively recording right now. To remedy that, what we're going to do is open up a second instance of OBS by right-clicking on the taskbar. It's going to warn us. It's going to be like, hey, you're already running OBS. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. Now, the only issue with opening 2 copies of OBS is that the camera is not active, but that's okay because we don't need OBS to be, we don't need the camera to be active. But as you can see, it's basically using the same settings Interestingly, my Stream Deck only controls one instance of OBS, which is good because I don't really need it to control two instances of OBS. And yeah, we're going to touch on this because this is relevant here. Alex says, I use my iGPU for encoding. Leaves my main GPU free to game. Ah, interesting. Okay, so I got something to add to that today. I think this will be of great interest to you. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the settings menu. Yeah, I think so. That is basically, yeah, I believe iGPU refers to an integrated GPU in Ella's case. And if I had to guess that her Intel CPU has, some kind of integrated GPU on it. So back in the day, Intel would have it on the chipset on the motherboard. And then nowadays, it's typically integrated in many modern GPUs. Although you can buy a CPU, many modern CPUs have an integrated GPU on the same, on the same package. You can buy a CPU without an integrated GPU. I did it with my outdoor PC because I had a couple of reasons why I felt that was the ideal solution or why I felt that was optimal for my purposes. But generally, there's not really a consequence to it. Sometimes there's a benefit to having both a dedicated GPU and an integrated GPU. And in the case of Intel, AMD has their own iGPU. I'm not fully versed on it, but I'd imagine it's comparable to their Radeons and all of that stuff. But each of these modern GPUs have their own hardware-assisted video encoding. And today I'm going to be talking about it in the context of NVIDIA GPUs, but the logic is pretty much applicable with the other big brand GPUs. Yes, so while I'm at work, if I ever use OBS at work to do a screen recording, because I find that it's more flexible than using Microsoft Teams when I need to record a clip locally, I'm using the iGPU. I'm using the hardware-assisted video encoding that comes with the Intel integrated GPU as an example. And that, once again, offloads the workload from the actual CPU. In the case of the office computer, we don't have a discrete or dedicated GPU anyway, but it still proves beneficial in terms of, various factors that we're going to touch upon in a moment. The Ryzen ones apparently perform underclocked if it comes with an iGPU. Yeah, that was part of the logic I applied there because I knew that relying upon an integrated GPU would kick off a little bit more heat, that the electricity consumed by that GPU would, displace some heat. And I said I'd rather eke out a little bit more CPU performance, even though in theory, I could potentially, have both a dedicated GPU and an iGPU and use the iGPU on the, Ryzen CPU to assist in some tasks. But realistically, for what I'm doing, I just felt it was unnecessary and not particularly helpful. But I may end up eating my words. I may end up considering that. But right now, I'm satisfied with the decision I made. On a laptop, even with a dedicated GPU, it might very well have an iGPU on the CPU, and that could be pretty handy in its own right. Or if you're doing an indoor desktop build, you might say, you know what, I have a use for that. And, it depends on what type of workload, right? The outdoor PC, I use it for controlling my telescope, storing data until I copy it to my server, sometimes running the image processing software, and video encoding. So during the summertime, when the air conditioner can't keep up with, the heat output of my computer, I just run the video encoder on an outdoor PC because even though it gets real toasty, I can keep it cool enough to not overheat. I can leave it processing that problem all day, especially if the weather is not good and I'm not going to use my telescope anyway. And it has no consequence, with regard to the temperature of my living space. Ronnie makes me feel dumb listening to his stuff. I'll try my best to bring it down to earth. Tell your office to get a 5090 Ti. Write it off as a business expense. I don't know, man. Dude, I don't want to touch on the realm of politics today. But even though I'm a municipal employee local, I don't want Doge descending upon me. I mean, just imagine, they're we found a guy in New York buying a 5090 for work as a operator. It's that could be a hell of an expose. So yeah, I'm not touching that with a 50-foot pole right now, but that would be funny. That would be pretty funny. Hey, what's up, James? just in time. I'm showing the OBS window, but we're not doing an infinite video loop. We did the Ronnieception thing early. Like, see, we even have like a chat message about Inception, but it's Ronnieception. I lost the chat message, but it was there. It was a funny joke. And if I could find it, I would click on it right now. But if I spent all day scrolling up, we would never get the show done. So anyway, getting on topic, and it's good to see you, James. Resuming the topic, I should say. So we've already gone ahead. We opened a second instance of OBS, although I want to just move the window to the right a little bit. There we go. I just want to make it like that so that it looks cool. I think the stars look cool, you know? But jokes aside, I'm doing it because I think it's important that people are able to differentiate between an application window and the taskbar and the wallpaper. Plus, I can always put little bullet points on the left when I'm editing. Okay, so anyway, moving along. In order to adjust the video settings, you would typically do it when you are not in the middle of recording video, because remember, you cannot change the settings in OBS while you are recording. So we opened up a second copy of OBS for this demonstration, but you know, it doesn't really make a difference. If I wasn't recording right now, I would just go to settings. And once again, the video tab or the video section affects the resolution, and we have it set to 1080p basically. 1080p at 60 frames a second. 1920 by 1080 is a 16:9 aspect ratio, meaning the proportion from how wide your screen is and how tall your screen is a ratio of 16:9. And that basically means pretty much any high definition TV produced in the past 20 years, with the exclusion that, you know, a TV made on the earlier end of 20 years might be 720p instead of 1080p, but even then, it's going to be a 16:9 aspect. It's going to be the same, you know, wide screen shape. And that includes pretty much all of my monitors, except for the leftmost monitor, which is an ultra wide screen display, which I sometimes do change the setting in OBS. So if we go back to the top monitor, I can very well pick 2560 by 1080. That is literally the same resolution as my left screen. We're not going to delve into that too deeply, but we're going to revisit this in a moment, because right now we have it set to 60 frames per second. So we're going to go to the output tab, because the output tab is where you're going to control the video encoding settings. And this is what largely dictates the quality and the size of the resulting file. Now, right off the bat, my settings window is a little bit different than what you would see on a brand new copy of OBS. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this button up here. You see where it says output mode? I have it set to advanced. We're going to set it to simple. This is what you would see on a new, more or less what you would see on a brand new copy of OBS. And for a lot of people, for most purposes, this set of options may very well be more than acceptable. For me, I found that I wanted more granular control, but we'll do a quick rundown. Right off the bat, the difference between simple and advanced mode is that while in advanced mode you have separate tabs for the streaming and recording settings, in simple mode you have both streaming settings and recording settings on the same screen. On top of that, you have fewer options, but like for streaming, this would be fine. The only caveat is like right up here where it says video bitrate. That's a little low. In my normal settings, I have it set to this, because 2500K per second or 2.5 megabits per second is like kind of low. If your internet connection is inconsistent or really slow, you're going to have to use a lower bit rate. But when you have the option to use a higher bit rate, you should, with a note being that if you're streaming to YouTube, or in my case, I stream to Restream and then YouTube, the maximum supported bit rate is 12 megabits per second. If I use a higher bit rate, everything still works. But what happens is, if we go to my left monitor here, and we look at the YouTube Studio window, I always keep this open, because anytime I play copywritten content, it's going to come up over here. So if I play a video that, you know, is copywritten or otherwise detected as not being mine to play, I'll get a notification right here under Stream Health. Tell me, hey, you're playing copywritten content. And then I could pause it or stop it like before it causes an interruption in my stream, basically. So it can be very handy to monitor this. Since we're not doing that right now, I'm just not really paying attention to this. I don't need to look at the chat because I have it in its own window. But the important thing is that when you use a bitrate higher than 12,000 K per second or 12 megabits per second, you're going to get a warning in two places. It's going to tell you right over here. It's going to literally give you like a yellow or red dot. It's going to say, hey, your bitrate is really high. It's going to give you some explanation why that's a bad thing. And it'll also create like a little log over here. So it'll put them in like, it'll put the messages in chronological order. So sometimes if I play copywritten content, it'll say copywritten content here and here. And then once you stop playing the copywritten content, this will turn green. And the previous notification will kind of go down in a list, like almost like a log entry. So what's the consequence of using too high of a bitrate? Well, it's not too big of a deal. The only issue is that YouTube will potentially have to do some encoding or processing on their end to bring it within, to make it conform to whatever, standard that they want it to conform to. And this can have an adverse effect on quality. This could have an adverse effect on your ability to edit the stream after the fact. And sometimes if you go to edit a previous stream on YouTube, you'll see it gets stuck in limbo, and that may very well be a related factor. So that's streaming, but see, this is exactly why I had to record this video multiple times earlier, because just talking about the streaming aspect, you can see how time consuming that would be. So for the benefit of the recorded video, for the benefit of saving time, we're going to just kind of save this explanation, the long-winded explanation of the streaming info for the replay of the live stream. And for this video, we're going to skip right past it so we can focus on recording video. So basically, bottom line is I use this number because 11,840 plus 160 equals 12 megabits per second. And that prevents the error message from popping up when I'm streaming. Now let's move on to recording. Basically, there's so few settings here in simple mode that it's all quite self-explanatory. Recording path. What folder do you want the video to be stored in? Recording quality. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, right? High quality, indistinguishable quality, and lossless. And so essentially what they're saying is that it's almost like saying like good, better, and best, right? Like there's no low, medium, high, but essentially like the middle setting where it says indistinguishable. In theory, hey, what's up? I saw you earlier. Where are my manners? Hello, the Peter Venkman fans. I'm sorry I didn't say hi to you earlier. So yeah, anyway, essentially when they say indistinguishable quality, in theory, the quality of this option is indistinguishable from this option down here, with the main difference being that while the indistinguishable quality will yield a large file size, the lossless quality will yield an unwieldy, a very large, an obscenely large file size. And so as a result, you generally want to pick the middle setting. In my case, I don't think that having this limited set of options is satisfactory. I feel that, I want a little more control. But before we show you the additional settings, let's continue the list right over here. Video encoder. Now, right here, everything is very clearly marked. You have two options with the word software at the beginning, and two options with the word hardware. And you'll see that next to hardware, it says NVENC. That is short for the NVIDIA encoder. And this is a video encoding capability that effectively runs on the GPU. And interestingly, Elle pointed out before that she uses the integrated GPU for the video encoding. And with a very logical reason, but there's a caveat here. Using the NVIDIA encoder may not necessarily affect gaming performance. It might in her case, because I know there's a lot of emulators running PlayStation 3 emulators, PS2. So I definitely don't want to, speak authoritatively by saying that it won't affect gaming. But as far as the games in my Steam library go, the NVIDIA encoder has had like no distinguishable impact on the performance of my games, with the exception of one title. And that game would be KSP2, Kerbal Space Program 2, which is practically discontinued. Like they literally like ran out of money during development and kind of just stopped developing that game. So the game that you buy today is like, that's it. That's what you can get. But bottom line is that when I went to play KSP2 using the NVIDIA encoder, both the video recording and the game underperformed until I switched to a software-based encoder. Now, what is meant by software-based encoder? Well, bottom line is that you see that we have both a software-based X264 and a hardware-based H264. For all intents and purposes, they're using, basically the same encoding standard. Except that if we go to our task manager, we go to the performance tab, when you use a software encoder, the heavy lifting happens on your CPU core. And for a lot of people, you might see something like this. I like to see all of the separate cores. I just think it's cooler. And then for the hardware-based video encoder, the heavy lifting happens down here. And here's an interesting aspect right off the bat. This is kind of cool. I'm presently streaming and recording right now. And so this graph is a bit higher. Let's see what happens when I pause the recording. I'm going to pause it in 3, 2, 1, mark. And in the meantime, while the recording is paused, I do want to say hello to the Punk Waddle. How you doing, Punk Waddle? It's good to see you, bud. We played the clip from Amber's stream from like 2 weeks ago where, I sound like Darth Vader. Yeah, that was fun. Can you choose compressed audio codecs like MP3 to leave more bandwidth for video? You can, but in fact, I'm glad you asked that question because we'll get to that in a moment. We are using, but just to briefly touch upon that real quick before I go into the weeds on it. We are using AAC, and AAC is effectively MP3. For all intents and purposes, it's doing what you would want MP3 to do. For instance, an MP3, an AAC at a bitrate of 100 an AAC at a bitrate of 100. Oh, real quick, see that graph? See, look, the graph. I'm sorry, I went too fast. Crap, let me unpause. Okay, so we paused it and we got a dip in the graph. Then I waited too long to show you. So what I just did was I resumed the video recording. Now we're going to go ahead. Oh, I'm pointing at this. Let me point with my mouse pointer. So now we're going to go ahead and pause the video recording now. And so because I'm running 2 separate video encoders, one of them is handling the encoding of video that is then being stripped off to restream to be sent to YouTube. And the other video encoder is recording video. So essentially, we got 2 separate video instances of NVIDIA encoder, but it's pretty efficient. It can handle both of them at the same time with extra room to spare. And what you'll notice is that while this video encoder is working, it's not really putting a lot of work on the GPU. However, where L may very well have a point in using the iGPU, and I haven't done this experiment yet, I would not be surprised. I don't know exactly what settings I would do to control this, but one thing is that when you use OBS is doing compositing, right? It's like putting things in layers. It's got the graphics in different layers, and you can add videos, you can add animations, you can put sound clips into OBS and whatnot. A lot of the visual stuff utilizes the 3D accelerator, and although I can tell OBS to use the use a separate GPU for video encoding, I'm not sure if I can dictate to OBS what GPU to use, although I'd imagine on a laptop or something there may be like a taskbar icon for that. That one, I'll be honest, I'm thinking about it. As I think about it in greater detail, I have not explored that in great detail. But I'd be curious to learn a little bit more about that aspect of how the video encoding works, because now I'm like, it's not so much video encoding, it's the fact that OBS is using hardware acceleration. That happens up here, and when you play a game, that happens up here. So the game is going to be using your, this over here, and it's going to be using a fair amount of video RAM, which right now it looks like running 2 video encoders might be effective. I'm running 2 instances of OBS plus a video encoder on the bottom. That's on my other screen. Yeah, it looks like we're already using up a lot of video RAM. So, generally, like when I'm streaming, I would not be running I would not leave any video encoding apps in the background. I would not be running 2 instances of OBS, and I would not be streaming and recording simultaneously. I would either be streaming or recording. But in theory, this graph here should not have an impact on gaming performance. And so that's why offloading the video encoding I don't think offloading video encoding to an iGPU will necessarily help. But if there is a way to tell OBS which 3D accelerator to use for the compositing or for just everything else, that might have a tangible benefit there, to be honest. So yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, we got Pops is here. No, I'm kidding. Pop Coach Mechanic. I'm thinking about Pops, the other guy. At symbol Pops. He's cool. That guy's cool. But yeah, Pop Coach Mechanic is also cool too. 4, 1, 4. All right. So getting back on topic here, we're gonna begin the recording. What was I doing? But yeah, bottom line is that I'm running 2 separate encoders, and this ties into something relevant here. So let's minimize this. And so bottom line is, yeah, if we're using a software encoder, that happens on the CPU. If we're using a hardware encoder, that happens on the dedicated, encoding component on the GPU. And like I said, out of 100 games I've played, I've only encountered 1 game that is adversely affected when using the NVIDIA encoder. And as a result, what's the benefit, the windfall? Well, basically it's that if I'm doing an instructional video if I'm doing an instructional video with some kind of CPU intensive application, a piece of software that uses up a lot of resources, using the NVIDIA encoder will, ensure that CPU intensive application continues to perform well. There are some exceptions, like for example, when I'm using DaVinci Resolve and I'm exporting video from DaVinci Resolve, it does use both the hardware and software encoders. Sometimes it does some funny business. I don't fully understand what DaVinci is doing, to be honest, but it does some interesting stuff on the back end. But even then, it's not really a consequential issue to use the NVIDIA encoder while doing an instructional video. That being said, if I'm doing a deep editing project in DaVinci, typically I'm not going to have OBS opened at the same time. But if I'm showing people how to use a specific feature or something, or showing something I learned, yeah, absolutely, I'll, open them at the same time, Now, one more thing. We'll see another thing worth noting. So for the software encoder X264, which, essentially Blu-ray uses a variation of the X264 encoder. I mean, they call it something like something AVC. I forget the name of it exactly, but it is a pretty standardized encoding, a pretty standardized codec that can be played by every Blu-ray player, whether it's coming off of a disc or a USB thumb drive. Now, you'll also notice that we have 2 software encoders, and one of them says low CPU usage preset increases file size. So as far as I can ascertain, it does not have an impact on the quality of the video. At least it doesn't give us any indication. But in theory, by sacrificing video compression, by tolerating a larger file size, you could reduce the workload on the CPU. So assuming it does not have any consequence on quality, this actually could very well be a good option. I mean, it might actually work out really well, depending on the amount of, excess resources your computer has at any given time. So yeah, in the context that you're saying, James, that would be X264. I don't know if it's AVC1, it probably is, but I would not quote myself on that. But yeah, that's X or H. I believe, so I don't actually know the difference between H and X264 and 265. Like, I don't know what the difference between, I don't know what the H and the X designate precisely, but what I can tell you based on what I'm looking at over here is that H.264, I mean, the H in this case goes next to the hardware encoder, and the software encoder has an X next to it. I don't know if that's a standard convention or just someone winging it when making OBS, but maybe the H does indeed mean hardware. And speaking of 265, I'm glad you mentioned it, because we do have that option here. It may not be evident, but between the 2 NVIDIA encoders, we have hardware encoder, NVIDIA encoder, H.264, and we got HEVC, high efficiency video coding. That is effectively H.265. It's just that I think one of them is like a generic or free implementation. The other one is more like, I don't know, not copyrighted, but you know what I mean, like proprietary to some extent. One of them is open, one is not. So bottom line is that you got two NVIDIA encoders, and why would you use HEVC, or why am I not using HEVC? Well, in a nutshell, if I record a video in the HEVC or 265 encoding, when I go to edit that video, it's going to be more CPU intensive. It's going to be a bit of a hog to scrub through the video. Scrubbing is when you're skipping through the timeline, going back and forth, and slicing up the video and all of that stuff. And so by using the 264 encoding, it's a bit more nimble on the timeline. Now, if you're editing a HEVC video in DaVinci, you could either re-encode it ahead of time, or when you open it in the editing software, you could right-click on the video in the timeline and tell it to generate optimized media, and then it'll re-encode the file, you know, as part of the project, like as a temp file, so to speak. And that'll make the file a bit more nimble, but that can be rather time-consuming. And being able to avoid that step can definitely just be a matter of convenience. The reason that some would choose to use the HEVC encoding would be if you're recording what you call it, 4K video. And so a lot of drones that can record in 4K do indeed use a HEVC or 265 encoding. It gets a bit more compression, smaller file at the cost of more, you know, CPU, so to speak. It has a few other good features about it, but overall, any kind of 264 encoding, especially the software-based 264 encoding, is going to give you a good balance between quality and compression without being heavy on resources by modern standards. And if you're putting your media on a media server like MB or Plex, generally it's going to be ideal to stream a 264 encoding to a Chromecast versus a HEVC encoding, which may or may not require additional transcoding that may or may not have some weird consequences, as I've encountered before. So, now we got that out of the way. Bottom line is that, yeah, I'm satisfied with this. And let's just say that using the 264 yielded slightly inferior quality to using HEVC. Using the settings that I'm going to show you next negates any potential related to that issue. Finally, two more things. Audio. So before we go and show you the settings that I actually use, audio encoder, AAC default. It's the default for a couple of reasons. One, YouTube officially supports it directly, so that's as good a reason as any to use it. Two, when it comes to, like, say, an AAC file at 160 kilobits per second, that's going to be comparable, better. That's going to have better quality than an MP3 at the same bit rate. Meanwhile, you could get the same quality out of an MP3 at a higher bit rate, but logically, AAC is newer, or at least it's more efficient at this point, that at a lower bit rate, you can get better quality than MP3. So, it's both compatible and it works well. You also have Opus if for any reason you want to use some kind of open source format like Opus. Then we have the audio tracks, but we're going to go and switch to advanced mode because remember, the settings I'm using right now reside under the advanced mode. Now, when we go to advanced mode, like we said before, instead of having the streaming and recording settings on one screen, they now reside in separate tabs. We're going to gloss over the streaming settings, although these are indeed the streaming settings we are using right now. So we got the 264 encoder here, and I could use software or hardware. We're using a hardware encoder. I'll be honest, I'd have to Google what AV1 is. I think I know what it is. It's kind of new. I don't know why they don't pick AV1 in simple mode, but you can just see we got different options. So in simple mode, we have two versions of X264. In advanced mode, we only have one version of the software-based X264, but that's probably because you get a lot more granular control. So in simple mode, when they said that you could pick a setting that is less resource intensive at the cost of getting a larger file, that would essentially be dictated by the preset over here where it says preset fast, low quality, faster, lower quality, fast, low quality, medium, medium quality, slow, good quality. So essentially, the slower it is, the better the quality. But if you read the documentation on the encoder, or if you're using something like FFmpeg or a popular video encoding app, it'll indicate that you should pick as slow of a setting as you can tolerate, because the slower setting when it comes to X264 will either yield better quality, a smaller file, or both. So I picked slow. I picked slow. Medium is perfectly acceptable. And picking slowest would be unnecessary. I'd say like you probably don't even notice a change in the quality unless you go 2 stops down. So if we're at fast, the next level of improvement would probably, if we go from fastest, we go to like 2 settings down to fast, and then to see a distinguishable improvement from fast, we might go from fast to slow. But chances are I would probably not be able to perceive a loss if I picked medium. And the thing is that if I don't want to lose quality while picking one of these lower quality presets, as they're called, I can compensate for that by picking a higher bit rate. And maybe another way I can improve the quality of the streams I'm doing at the current bit rate would be to just pick the slowest setting and see what happens. But we're not going to do that right now. Instead, we're going to go to the recording tab now. And over here, it's very similar to before, but we have more options. But before we, delve into that, let's take a look at the chat. Because I saw some interesting discussion. I was looking at an AMD 8700G unit, and it appears to be limited to 5200 DDR5 RAM. So what? That's plenty fast. Okay, I don't actually, like, you could read like the gigabytes per second of video RAM, and I'd be like, I keep track of shit when I'm buying it, but when I'm not in the middle of a shopping phase, it's like I don't follow it too closely, And it's kind of funny that like did they come out with something newer than DDR5 yet? Like, I mean, how long have we been using DDR5 video memory? Anyway, I'm sure there's been other adjustments to the performance, latency, and clock, but just kind of interesting, I mean, not even mention, maybe I will read up on that. It's not that interesting, but it's kind of academically interesting, right? I got a Ryzen 5 5600G unit, GG. I'm guessing that X means extended or extender. That's what she said. But that's just a guess. Maybe. Or it could mean X. Or maybe they have a term that they insert there. I don't know. I'm guessing too. See, I'm making up stuff too, James. I don't know. My build cost less than a Steam Deck. Heck, your build might have cost less than a Stream Deck. They overcharged for that. But jokes aside, that a Steam Deck was... The Steam Deck has come down in price. And they have a newer model out. But yeah, I can imagine you could definitely build something economical, especially as a desktop build, right? I need to upgrade my video card sometime soon. Don't we all? Me too. They should just put a NEMA plug on the back of GPUs. They just literally, just like how you plug a power cord into your power supply, they should just have an electrical outlet plug for the graphics card. Just skip the power supply, just draw power straight from the wall socket, because they're getting to that point. For the AM4 socket, got a Gigabyte motherboard. Those always work for me. Yeah, Gigabyte's pretty cool. I've had no complaints or no observable meaningful issues with the Gigabyte brand. I tend to avoid brand biases, but I say that, but I tend to be this MSI fanboy, but I always have a complaint that MSI built a GPU that takes up 3 slots, but apparently that's the norm, so it's not really their fault. It's sort of like this happens when a GPU uses up enough power to cook eggs on the back of it, that it needs that much more, radiator, that much more space for the radiator or heat sink. iTunes is a good reason for AAC. Yeah, I don't even use iTunes, but less hassle for Apple users. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Low Spec Linux Gaming? I still have an Apple II Plus. That's pretty sweet. I gotta look up pictures of that sometime. I'm rocking a Ryzen 3400G. So he's not a low spec Linux Gaming anymore. He's a medium spec Linux Gaming now. Well, I don't know. Maybe that. I'm sure there's like some person out there who'd be like, "That's garbage." Like I had a guy on Reddit. I was telling them on Reddit about my issue with playing Kerbal Space Program 2 while using the NVIDIA encoder. I was hoping someone would give me like a proper technical explanation or something, you know? It was freaking useless. Instead, I get some jerk telling me that my GPU is too outdated because I can't record Havoc. I'm like, I wasn't even talking about Havoc. And number two, if you read my post, you'd know that the only game where I run into any issue was KSP2, and that evidently there's something unique about that game which I was trying to explore, you know? But whatever, you know, some people, they just throw money at the problem, and I'm sure that helps to some extent, but they're gonna be missing something big when they start running into issues and they don't know how to fix them. So, you know, somebody's working with like limited resources, you can get more done. You can figure out cool tricks. Like some people, they stream at 720p. So really, you don't even need to play certain games at 1080p, right? You could literally run the game at 720p, run OBS at 720p, and get better performance out of both. In situations where you're really strapped for resources, I mean, even more so than this example here. B550 chipset. I think I have something comparable to that. I honestly don't remember what chipset I have. Whatever's compatible with, the one in my backyard, I mean. Whatever's compatible with the Ryzen, what the hell do I have, a 70-something hundred? I forgot. Anyway, we can log into that computer. Let's see what we got here. Actually, okay, we're gonna go. Karumi ended his stream. Karumi loves no better. All right, so I'm such a boomer. I forgot what CPU I have. Okay, I do have, okay, 5800. Ryzen 7 5800X. Got 32 gigs of RAM. And the GPU on this one is a Quadro P600. It's an older Quadro there. Yeah. But it gets the job done. Great budget builds and good cheap CPU with good onboard graphics. Yeah, that's true. Graphics cards are funny. It's adding another computer to your computer. It'll get to the point where a graphics card will have a slot for a mini graphics card and so on to infinity. Well, some person, you're not far off. I don't know if this is like a thing that really planning on doing, but I seen an example of a GPU that has an SSD slot on it. And I believe it would be for the purpose of storing cache or for providing some supplemental memory to the video memory. So instead of having a swap file, you have like a high performance connection between the GPU itself and an SSD. Almost like, you know, how you got L3 cache and then you could argue that RAM is almost like level 4 cache for a CPU. You know, in a very rough context, like in a very rough paraphrasing here. This is not accurate, but you get my drift. So so you might very well see GPUs that have a PCI Express X4 lane built into them for the purpose of accommodating a high performance or some kind of SSD. Hey now, I'm still using CPU graphics, no dedicated GPU here. Well, CPU graphics in a way are like a dedicated GPU, you know what I mean? Like it just happens to be on the same die as the, you know, but you're right, I guess that still counts as integrated. Really, your specs on Linux is kind of adjusted to what Linux can handle. Yeah, to some extent that's true. Question. I think it meant handle, not read. Or what Linux can, text-to-speech can be off sometimes. Speech recognition, actually. He uses speech recognition, not text-to-speech. What up, Slim? It's good to see you, bud. Lady Miss, thanks for the grub. Nom. I gotta give my turtle some more crickets tomorrow. Does anybody know what the shelf life of freeze-dried crickets are? Yeah, does anyone know what the shelf life of freeze-dried crickets is? Because I'm afraid to, you know, give my tummy ache. Maybe graphics cards will allow adding more RAM. Nah, they want you to buy more. You nuts, man. Come on. Be real. But, you know, it would be cool if the SSDs were fast enough. And they might be, because they're pretty fast. And with all this AI stuff, like if you run AI locally, it takes an insane amount of video memory. It's no joke. Like, I was running this thing called Pinocchio, and it's available on Windows and Linux. And it's got like a little marketplace where you download like various AI things, and some of them are image generators. Some of them do simpler functions. Some of them generate sound bites and fake music and stuff like that. And it essentially has to load the entirety of the model into your video RAM. So if you have less than 10 gigs of video memory, like it might not even run the model. And so you got to make sure when you download something that you check, well, does this even run with less than 10 gigs of video RAM? I have 6, and I might be better off running it on my other GPU with 8 gigs on my server. But realistically, you really need to be packing 12 gigs to do that crap. But if you could have 8 gig GPU with like a terabyte SSD attached to it, and the latency was low enough that it can do swap without cutting into actual, regular RAM, maybe that would help bridge the gap there, and allow more, larger AI models to run on both cheap GPUs and monstrous GPUs alike. And yeah, either way, it'd be a good way to save money. But once again, they don't want you to save money. Come on, you got to think about the industry here. I mean, you're not obligated to think about the industry, but you got to think like them to understand their motive. You know what I mean? And so that's where I'm at. 12 months. Something's 12 months. I forgot what was 12 months. What's 12 months? Maybe he meant gigs. 12 gigs. Yes, 12 gigs. So anyway, getting back on track here. So once again, from the top. Up here we got the recording path. Wait a second. I'm still recording. I'm on mute again. Drink a shot. Oh, with proper storage. Oh, the bugs. Thank you, Slim. And thank you, Lady Mist. Okay, freeze-dried crickets. I think I've had them for less than 12 months. I will check if I ordered them on Amazon, and I will check the date, and I will dispose of them if it's been longer. Thank you, both. Alrighty. So, oh yeah, let's get the... See, it's so cool. You can see all the emojis on screen. How lovely is that? All right. So getting back on track. So we picked advanced output mode. We got the recording path. And you can even tell it to generate a file name without spaces. Don't know why you would do that, but there's situations where you might. We got the recording format. Now, I didn't delve into this earlier, but we should talk about this. So the recording format in this case is MKV. And I have no reason to use anything else, but when I started streaming and when I started uploading stuff, my editing software at the time did not support MKV, so I had to do something, either convert it or remux it. I'll explain what that means in a moment, in order to bring it into my editing software, because I couldn't directly take an MKV. So one option you might say is, well, why don't I just record an MP4? As soon as you pick MP4, and that's just a file extension, right? .mp4, .mkv, that's essentially a container. And you look down here, you'll see that it says, warning, recording saved to MP4/MOV will be unrecoverable if the file cannot be finalized. Example, result of a blue screen of death, power loss, etc. So if OBS or your entire computer crashes, that could corrupt the file to the point that you have an incomplete file that you can't even use. And that could be very... that could be very disruptive. You know, if you spend a half hour recording a 40-minute video and then now you have to start over even though everything was perfect. And so they do give you a remedy. They say, if you want to record multiple audio tracks, consider using MKV and remux the recording to MP4. So apparently, if I only use one audio track, apparently it's inconsequential. Excuse me. But if I'm using multiple audio tracks, and I am using multiple audio tracks, then there's a lot of downside potential to using directly recording to an MP4. So in the event that I insist on using multiple audio tracks, they recommend that I do use MKV. And if my editing software does not support MKV, they tell you exactly what the remedy is right over here. They say consider using MKV and remux the recording to MP4/MOV after it is finished by going to File and Remux Recording. And I can go over there right now. So we're going to go File, Remux Recording. Well, basically, we go to this folder icon, and you can see that that's my OBS folder, right? And so you could open a file like that, or you could even do this. You could even go into the folder where the videos are and drag and drop them like that. And what this does is it's going to basically copy the files on the left to a new file. It's going to copy the MKV file. It's going to copy the audio and video tracks from the MKV file to a brand new MP4 file. Aside from that, it doesn't change anything. It does not re-encode the audio or video, meaning this process is not time consuming. It happens very quickly. Whereas running it to a video encoder or video converter, running it through a video encoder or running it to a video converter, that will be time consuming and resource intensive. And so bottom line is that the remuxing option, which is located in the file menu up here, which spawns this window, enables you to, turn an MKV into an MP4 file in the event that your editing software does not support MKV. And it's very straightforward. Now, when you do run the remux option, after you do it, you would check the new file, make sure the MP4 file is good, make sure it plays. And if it's good, you do have to delete the original. The original file will not get deleted on its own. So after you remux the file, you're going to have 2 copies of every video on this list. You have to go about deleting the original yourself. But once you do that, the MP4 file is imperceptibly, it's the same. And you now have a file that you can edit. Pardon me. Excuse me. So we're going to go back to the settings window now. We're going to go back to output. Now you know why I use MKV and I don't plan to change it. Also, it should be noted, I don't have to remux because every editing program I use now, I use DaVinci Resolve. I use Power Director. I've used Filmora like once. They all appear to support MKV, so there's no reason for me to remux them anymore. And I don't really have any reason to use any of these other formats. I think it's pretty funny that they still have the FLV flash video codec. And then under the format, so we got the MKV, we picked out encoder. I've already explained why I use the NVIDIA encoder, but you could certainly use the X264 if I had integrated video on my Intel CPU. If I had an Intel CPU with integrated video, I don't. But if I did, there would be an option here. It would be called Intel QuickSync or Intel QSV. And so hypothetically, I might pick Intel QSV for video recording, or I might say I'll use NVIDIA encoder for recording video, and I might use Intel QSV over here. So if you have integrated video on an Intel GPU, that's going to be listed as Intel QSV. And, if you have an AMD GPU, maybe somebody in the chat can tell me what that comes up as. I honestly don't know. What is it called? What do they call the AMD video encoder? Does anybody know offhand right now? I'd be curious. I'm curious. So yeah, moving along. The audio now in advanced mode. See how we got a lot more options here. We got FFmpeg AAC, ALAC, FLAC, lossless audio codec, free lossless audio codec. We got Opus, same as earlier before. We got multiple PCMs. Now PCM, best quality, no compression. What that means is, I'll give you an example. I have a Blu-ray box set of Japanese anime series, 24 minutes per episode. when I copy the Blu-ray to my computer without re-encoding the audio track, 24 minutes of stereo sound in 16-bit PCM comes out to like 300 megabytes. Converting it to like another format, it's between like 40 and 80 megabytes, depending on what setting I use. So, you know, obviously, hands down, like, unless you have a reason to keep it in a lossless format, it's ideal to compress it. Now, that said, what I might sometimes do is encode at a higher bitrate of AAC. So I remember when I got my hands on Macross 7, instead of being encoded at 160 kilobits per second, the person who, like, you know, uploaded it or made it available encoded the audio track at 192 kilobits per second. And that made sense with that particular series because, you know, any Macross series has a lot of music in its soundtrack, right? It's got like a very thorough musical score. I mean, it's literally part of the plot is the musicians in this series and the music that they're playing. I mean, it's like a big freaking deal. So it made sense that the person who encoded that particular series opted to use a slightly higher bitrate to ensure that they didn't, you know, sacrifice the fidelity of that audio track. But using PCM, unless you absolutely need to, unless you're like doing some kind of major sound editing in Audacity, you know, is going to definitely result in a significantly larger file. FLAC will give you slight compression. So I've gotten like, I think like 80 megabytes out of a FLAC instead of like the 300 megs. But the problem with FLAC is that my editing software, last time I checked, does not support the FLAC. So I just don't use it, you know? And then we got 5 audio tracks. Imagine if I had 5 PCM audio tracks. That would be an enormous file. So we have 5 AAC audio tracks here. And I should talk about that for a moment. So if we right-click on the VU meter, we go to Advanced Audio Properties. You'll see here that it's got all of my sound sources. And every time you add a new source, it's going to have all of the checkboxes on. So whenever you add a new sound source, you have to go through these checkboxes and uncheck the tracks that you don't want. So what is this doing? Well, track 1 is effectively a combined audio track, meaning that my microphone and my desktop audio. So before, when we reacted to a video and we were playing music or voices on stream from a video we were watching on my screen, that came from the desktop audio, which is right under this window. And since when we're streaming, we can only have 1 audio track. So even though when I'm recording video, I have 5 audio tracks, when I'm streaming, I can only pick 1 audio track. And you can see right over here, we can actually switch between different audio tracks. So what I do is, track 1 is a combined audio track, meaning that my microphone, my HDMI input if I'm playing a game console, and my desktop audio are all on that same audio track. And then if I don't want to share desktop audio, I would have to mute that individual track. When it comes to recording a video, it's a little bit different. So we're going to take a look at that next. Here, give me 1 second. Okay, I was double checking the chat, making sure I didn't miss anything. So now when I'm recording a video, what happens is my microphone goes to track 2. My HDMI goes to track 3. My desktop audio goes to track 4. And if I was recording a video game, that would be on track 5, but that's on a different monitor. Was I on the correct monitor just now? Was I sharing the correct monitor? Oh, please tell me I was sharing the right monitor. I'm going to go nuts if I wasn't. I'm going to rewind my tape. Okay, good. I was on the right monitor. Thank goodness. I hate when I don't share the right monitor. My GPU is a refurbished RX 580 2048 SP. Do you remember what the video encoding is called on your iGPU? Like, did they call it AMD something? Like, you know, I'm just kind of curious what video encoding they use, or what the name of it might come up, what the name might come up as when you had said it in the past. But yeah, so I'm trying to remember, well, how do I get the game? I want to show you guys a cool example here. How do I do this here? Okay, I'm looking for something very relevant. Oh, I know why. Okay, got it. I know what's going on. Okay, we're going to go to this instance of OBS for a minute because we're looking for something very specific. Hang on. Huh. Oh, here it is. Okay, so it's not listed here right now, but it says desktop audio. And if we go to advanced it doesn't say yet. Let me turn on the example. We're going to do something here. We're going to turn on the game audio. So I have a source here called game audio. And in fact, I guess we could do it here. Or not. No, we can't do it here. So we're going to do it here. Oh, wait, actually, I know what I got to do. Hold on. I forgot. I got to click on the scenes manually. Oh. Okay, here it is. So over here, we have a source called game audio. And it's actually a beta feature, meaning that it's sort of like in testing still. So we like turn it on. You'll see now we have desktop audio and game audio. And this is a cool feature. What it does is it lets me record the audio from a game independently of my desktop audio. So if we go to advanced audio properties, you'll see here that we have desktop audio and game audio right over here. And interestingly, it shuffled it around from where it was before. Let me see something here. Why did it do that? That's interesting. It did not obey me. Anyway, that's all right. So let's get back to the setting here. So bottom line is that my desktop audio is on track 4. But what I would typically do is I would take the game audio, which is also on track 4, and that is typically fine. So hypothetically, what I would do is if I was playing a game and listening to a podcast at the same time, I would simply mute, oops, I made that louder. I would mute my desktop audio like this. And so now, while I'm playing the game and listening to a podcast, I would be able to hear both the podcast and the game audio. But OBS would only be recording the game audio. Now, the only issue with that is if I forget to mute the desktop audio, we're going to be recording both sources on the same audio track, which defeats the purpose of using multiple tracks. So a remedy for that, it's not super critical, but it could be helpful, is to hit the checkbox and move the game audio to track 5 like this. And so now I can leave both audio sources, on. I can listen to a podcast or listen to some copywritten music while I'm recording a video game. And the audio for the podcast would be on track 4. The audio for the game would be on track 5, and my microphone would be on track 2. And so now when I go to edit the video, underneath the video track in the editing timeline, we're going to have like 5 separate tracks underneath it. And track 1, I can keep it on as a preview, but essentially that's the first track I'm going to typically mute. Then from there, I'm going to say, okay, let's say the music is too loud. The game, okay, number 1, well, we're going to delete or mute the desktop audio because in that scenario, we only want the game audio, let's say. So anyway, bottom line is that if the microphone is too low or the game audio is too loud or overpowering and it's hard to hear what I'm saying, I can either lower the volume of the game audio independently of the microphone, or I can increase the gain or volume on the microphone independently of the microphone, or I can do both. I can lower the game audio and increase the microphone audio, and then I can apply a filter. So let's say I want to apply an equalizer or a low pass or a high pass filter. Maybe the sound is really muddy, it's too bassy, and it's hard to distinguish various sounds. I can apply that filter to the microphone without impacting the game audio. Whereas if I had the game and the music, or the game and my microphone on the same track, any adjustment I make is going to adjust both the game audio and the microphone. So if I make it lower, my voice and the game get lower. If I make it louder, then my voice and the game get louder. Now, there might be a filter you could use that kind of like locks in on the tone or the frequencies of your voice and adjusts that independently, but that requires a bit more magic than I prefer to be applying if I can avoid it. And having separate audio tracks like this allows me to avoid, invocation of magic. So, just very easy. Whereas when I'm streaming, everything's on the same track. And I have to independently mute or unmute the tracks that I don't want. When I'm recording, I can leave every track on and I can mute them later without any, real consequence. That's why I have it set up like that. And I want to thank you, Elle, for confirming. AMD Havoc, I think. Something like that. Okay. I mean, I believe that. That sounds about right. I mean, if you find out, great. If you don't, that's cool too. But yeah, definitely. it sounds to me that it's going to say AMD Havoc or AMD X264, AMD AVC, I can imagine. But either way. So now, it's AMD Havoc. High efficiency video coding. Thank you, El. And that is the answer. So yeah, basically what that means is, let's keep that on screen. That's actually very relevant. So we're gonna go back to settings. We're gonna go to output, recording, and so if you had, whether you're in advanced mode or simple mode, that's gonna be listed as AMD Havoc in the case of what L is using. Chances are there's also an AMD 264 equivalent, or maybe not. But, you know, it would be listed either here under video encoder under simple mode. It would literally just be another option. Or it would be under advanced mode under video encoder down here. Oh, right over there. And that answers the main question. Thanks. So now, the most important thing, this is why I had such a hard time recording the video, because I kept retracing my steps to get to this point, or I would get to this point and then I would start over. So now, let's talk quality once again. What two things impact quality of the video? Well, what factors affect the quality? For starters, superficially, the resolution and the frame rate. I use 60 frames per second because every display made in the past 25 years, if not longer, runs at 60 frames per second. Broadcast TV might not take advantage of that, but modern TV, modern broadcast systems, modern DVD, Blu-ray players, etc. can totally take advantage of that. And then would be the video encoding. Now, interestingly, let's say I was streaming or recording using a really low bit rate. Like, let's say I couldn't use this bit rate. I had to use something lower than 12 megabits per second. The lower I make the bit rate, the more likely we're going to get like blurriness and blockiness in the video. And if I'm forced to use a lower bit rate, a way that I can compensate and improve the quality is by choosing a lower frame rate. Because essentially, whether you use 30 frames a second or 60 frames per second, the bit rate is the same if you're using a constant bit rate. But it now has to include more frames for the same amount of, you know, memory, so to speak. And that means that something has to be sacrificed. Quality has to go. Conversely, reducing the amount of frames it has to handle will give the encoder an opportunity to achieve better quality. And in situations where your resources are limited, whether it be the performance of your computer or your internet connection or some combination thereof, this is a potential workaround, a valid workaround for dealing with that. So now we're going to go back to output. Now that we know that, we're going to go back to recording. And, well, I'm going to direct your attention to the encoder settings. So, you know, I have NVIDIA encoder H264. But really, whether I pick H264 or Havoc, the options are basically the same. If I pick one of these other encoders, you get completely different options, right? AOM AV1 or this other AV1. What the hell is this? Seems okay. What type of preset is seems okay? Seems okay. Okay, I'm not using AV1 until I read about it. Okay. Jokes aside, AV1 has some advantages, but it also has a lot of things that don't seem like advantages. So it's not really a loss if you don't embrace AV1, but some websites, some platforms, I think Facebook invented AV1. I think they use it on their platform for videos that you upload to their platform. But for my purposes, my goals are not the same as Facebook's goals. So I'm going to continue using the NVIDIA encoder H264. Now, interestingly, there is one disadvantage. I can get slightly better compression if I use the CPU-based or software-based encoding. But because I like to leave more resources available, and because I find that using the NVIDIA encoder does not impact my gaming performance, I'm using that. Now, before we talk about the options here that control the bit rate or the quality, let's really quickly visit the chat. 32 is okay. Anything less than that, and you can definitely tell. Oh, yeah, 32 frames. Yeah, so really, like 30 frames a second makes sense. It's a good balance. You're absolutely right. anything less than 30 frames a second. 32 is kind of like a little bit up. I mean, think about broadcast TV is going to either be 24 or 29.97. But because we don't live in the 90s, I think it's unnecessary to round it down. I feel like we should just round it up at this point. Like when I export video, I export it at 30 or 60 frames per second. I don't see a reason to not use whole numbers. When they make a movie on motion picture film, they do it at 24 frames a second. The only reason they make it 24 point something frame, they make it 23 point something frames a second is because of broadcast TV and the fact that they held on to really old standards that they probably should have updated sooner. But I get it. They need things to be forward and backwards compatible. Like when color TV came out, they needed to make sure that black and white TV still worked, and all of that jazz. But anyway, yeah, it's true. Like mostly 30 frames a second is acceptable and imperceptible. That said, 60 frames can provide a beautiful, like, smoothness to it, right? It could be buttery smooth, it could be really nice. And I think it's kind of dumb that people who make movies, professional movie makers, don't use 60 frames per second. And a lot of them, they have this smug attitude that you can't perceive 60 frames a second, or you can't perceive the difference. Well, you might not be able to perceive 24 frames versus 30 frames a second, but a human can certainly perceive 24 versus 60 frames a second. But that being said, it's like, I get it. Directors are trained and accustomed to making films at 24 frames a second. But if you look at like Lord of the Rings, when they're panning through the Middle Earth map, you get this weird motion judder. And different TVs will handle it better. So some plasma TVs have a mode called like the 24p, like anti-judder mode. And it helps to address that. And it helps, in fact, I got to watch Lord of the Rings tomorrow or something on my plasma TV. I want to see how that looks, because I know how it looks on my monitor here. It mostly looks good, but when it's panning through the Middle Earth map, something looks a little bit off. And like, it's not a big deal, but the other thing that pisses me off is that they released The Hobbit to theaters at 48 frames per second. But because people complained, because nobody has any fucking taste, they don't sell that. They didn't sell it on Blu-ray. You can't buy The Hobbit at 48 frames per second on Blu-ray or DVD because the rest of y'all ruined it. Maybe not you guys, but you know who I'm talking about. Anybody who complains about The Hobbit being at 48 frames per second, you might be wrong. But I digress. It seems okay, but the portal to hell. But it's the portal to hell. Yeah. It seems okay, but it's the portal to hell. I gotta play Portal again. I want to play Portal 64. Slim didn't put me on the Portal 64, yo. That was cool. But like, I had to download like the source code or the ingredients, and then I had to take the Portal maps and copy them to a folder. Then I had to open it in the command line on my Linux box and like try to like issue commands to remake it. And I got stuck at that part of the process. So I then go on a torrent site and I downloaded a prepackaged copy of Portal 64, but it was an older version. So it wasn't quite complete, but it works. Like the game Portal works on N64. And because I have a flash cartridge, it was a trivial matter for me to copy to an SD card and put it in my N64. So that kicked ass. Yep, that is confirmed. And all that jazz. I feel like when I read that, I need to snap my fingers, I've seen some AI-enhanced footage of film from 100 years ago. The frames are increased and the people seem to move more realistically. Interesting. Well, I did some experimentation recently, right? Like I upscaled this like Japanese dance compilation video, and that was at 29 frames per second, but it sometimes looked like the frame rate was even lower, probably just a consequence of mixing different sources of footage together. But I opted to interpolate the frame rate, and it didn't exactly make it buttery smooth, but it did eliminate some of that juddering effect, so to speak, that made it look like it was even lower than 30 frames a second. So overall, I was satisfied with the result of that process. And I've seen some other interesting things being done. I did some experimentation with Topaz AI. I got like an older version of Topaz AI. And it has an interesting feature for interpolating frames. The issue I had with Topaz AI was its upscaling capabilities. Sometimes it would create these weird like visual artifacts, especially when you zoom in on a video and you analyze it. You would see these like weird repetitive checkerboard patterns that like would blend in to give you the illusion of greater detail, but would actually, when once you see them, you can't unsee them. And it makes sense. There's like, and when you play a 24 frames per second movie, and it's being handled correctly by the media player or the computer that's playing it, it works. And conversely, like, I would love to take advantage of movies at 120 frames per second, but they don't look right. And part of it is the directing that goes into it, the directing style. They just don't know how to direct for for something, for 120 frames per second. And maybe that's just, maybe that's something that's insurmountable. Maybe the answer is hybrid content. Maybe in the future we'll have films that will use both frame rates, interchangeably depending on what's going on. Because you can always film a movie at 120 and have scenes at 24, but that would be too complicated. Plus, I think at the end of the day, the people who do the processing of the video, the visual effects, and the editing, they're perfectly content doing everything at 24 frames per second because, like, how much would that suck? I mean, like, dude, if you download Blender and you download one of the sample models and you try to, like, render it, it takes a long time. And, imagine, like, if it takes, like, multiple minutes to do one frame. And then you got to do, like, 24 frames a second. That takes longer. Now, for, like, let's say you bring it up to 60 frames a second. Now you got to do 60 frames for every second of video. And it already takes you multiple minutes or like more than a minute to do one frame. So now instead of it taking you 24 minutes or a half hour to do 1 second worth of video, worth of animation, it takes you double that amount of time or a little bit more than double that time. So, I can imagine that Hollywood and the people who do all of this visual effects stuff are not clamoring to offer. Hell, maybe there's a conspiracy. Maybe they do a crappy job with high frame rate movies so that the public, demands to keep it at 24. And maybe they're manufacturing a demand for mediocrity. But then again, I'm just kind of talking out of my rectum here. Yeah, right? I know it was, but it was so cool when it works. It is so cool. Portal 64. It's just the fact that like you export a game, and the same guy who did that project, he got like this like very simple scene. It looks like you're inside of a chapel to have GameCube like graphics, but the way he did it basically like necessitates that each room in that particular game can't be particularly big. Like you could have like a small room that's very high quality, but you essentially have to connect one small room to another small room. Like you can't make a gigantic map unless you're recycling a lot of the graphical assets. You can't have like a giant diverse map that has a lot of unique graphical assets in it, basically. But the small demo scene he did looked freaking astounding, for what it was on the hardware that it was running on. Yeah, okay, I can see that. I can definitely see that. When it moves in like 60 frames per second, like real time, it kind of breaks the immersion. And, there's something to be said for being able to direct something at 24 frames a second and being able to make it look epic. I mean, there's a lot of people that would be unable to do that. Like they would just be ill-equipped to know how to handle it correctly. Like they would hold the camera, or they would direct a film camera, or they direct a digital video camera that is supposed to be 24 frames. That would typically be done at 24 frames. And they just might pan too quickly. I mean, when you direct a movie and you aim a camera and you operate a camera at 24 frames a second, there's a methodology that is applicable to that. And if you break that methodology, you could really mess it up, I guess. That's my theory. So 60 frames per second can be more forgiving, but it also permits more amateurish work. Or something like that, But that's my speculation as to why it looks less epic at a higher frame rate. Exactly, LCX. There are visuals that can be overdone, trying for reality, but hey, instead, absolutely great reality. This is the first place that upconverts film. Oh, this is the place that upconverts old films. Oh yeah, these are interesting, yeah. And so another thing I did was instead of using Topaz AI for the upscaling, I used my preferred video encoder. And holy crap, I am gonna have to re-record my video because I didn't even get to that part yet. I think I'm gonna have to do this video in 2 parts. But real quick, let's take a look at this. Here, let me get this in the full screen for you guys. The sound is definitely added. There are some weird interpolation artifacts here, but it looks pretty decent. Oh, let me make sure the resolution is at max. Yep, 1080p 60. Like once in a while the vertical lines get a little gummied up, and if the original video that the guy worked with was already compressed, that's going to make his job a little bit more challenging too. From what I can figure, there was a lot of there was colorization done to this. I don't think this was filmed in color, because filming in color is pretty tricky. I could be wrong though, but filming in color requires you to basically have 3 different strips of film. Ah, there we go, people walking. And you can't magically create resolution where there was none, but it does an okay job, you know? You got the kids, you got the kid there, you got the other kid. They look like they're workers, actually. I mean, they could be kids and workers, right? How we did it back in the day. Unfortunately, we don't have our kids working today. I mean, those cables look like they're moving more. Oh, what was that? That was interesting. I want to see something here. Okay, I want to look at this building over here. Oh, okay, that was the film just jumping. That was just the nature of it. And see those curtains there? You can see the digital interpolation got very confused by that. So where the resolution is lower, or the spatial resolution is lower, it definitely, like, you know, got a little tricky. It still looks cool, you know. Like, once again, without knowing the source material, I'd be speculating a lot. Like, I'm almost certain this guy didn't just take a reel of film or negatives and put it in a projector and record that. Kid's like, wow, a camera. Never seen one of those. Well, I mean, might have seen one, but you know what I mean. I didn't know they had trolleys in Cairo. It looks just like New York in 1920. Oh, that's Catherine from Stargate. I colorized, restored. I'm going to read the description for you guys. I colorized, restored, and designed the sound for this rare video of Cairo, Egypt in the 1920s. The footage showcases both ancient architecture, tracing back to Fatimid Mamluk and Ottoman periods, and other European-style buildings, reflecting a city divided between traditional Arab quarter and the business district. The video also captures the pyramids of Giza, including the Sphinx, which had just been excavated from the sands. That's cool. Here we are. This is the part I care about. Video restoration process. FPS boosted to 60 frames per second. Image resolution boosted up to high definition. Probably full HD because it says 1080p, but maybe, I don't know, we'll see. It looks like, I mean, it said 1080p in the corner. Colorized only for the ambiance, not historically accurate. I mean, it takes some work. He probably did a pretty good job in the color for all purposes. Oh, our friend Arvis is on. I'm going to wrap up my stream soon so we can all tune into him and raid him. Restoration, stabilization, denoise, cleaned, and deblurred. B&W video source. Musée Departement Albert Kahn, says Kahn there. It's a Star Trek reference. Kahn dans le Departement de Haute Chien, Sauvegarde Camille. Please be aware the coloration colors are not real and fake. What? They're not real and fake, so are they real or fake? I'm joking. I know what he meant. Wait. Okay, I got distracted from making jokes. Colorization was made only for the ambiance and do not represent real historical data. Albert Kahn, born Abraham Kahn. I'm sorry. Anyone who watched saw Star Trek 2 would know what I'm talking about. Was born, let's see, on March 3rd, 1860, and died in Boulogne, Billancourt, on November 14th, 1940. He was a French banker and philanthropist. He amassed a magic iconographic collection entitled Archives de la Planète, Archive of the Planet, the world's largest collection of autochromes, color photographs on glass plates, and black and white films housed at the Musée Départemental Albert Kahn. So, interestingly, the color process is actually really cool because, real quick, we're going to touch on this. I think we sidetracked ourselves enough that we're having a good time with this one. All right, so let me remember, what was it called? Russian color photo early. I think the guy's name was Sergei Andreev. Okay, we're getting there, but I need to find the picture I was looking for. So, and I need to find the example how his camera worked. Okay, so we found some of his early photos, so I got that, but let me just type in his name. Because his camera was a... here we are. I think I found it. Oh, yeah, I found it. Okay. So you're going to love this, guys. All right, so there's this Russian guy back in the olden days. Like, here he is. But where's his big picture? I want to find the big picture for you guys. That's weird. Why does this thing not have the big picture? Like, that's not the big picture. I want the big picture, dang it. That's a zoomed in close-up of his big picture. Here it is. Good. Got it. Okay. So, right here. This is like an early color photograph. And if we 0% zoom it, this is what it looks like. So, you can see he's sitting on a rock. And you'll notice that because the film was slower back then, it needed longer exposure time. So, it's on a tripod. And essentially, the river looks as if you're using a neutral density filter, but he's not using a neutral density filter because, or the creek, because the film is so slow that you don't need a neutral density filter to cut down the brightness. Like, you already need to do a relatively long exposure and sit really still. Although the sunlight definitely helps to speed up the exposure time. The wind hitting the grass might have impacted the quality here, but my guess is that that in addition to the wind, there might be soft spots in the field of view. Maybe the, parts of the frame are out of focus a little bit, but it looks like optimal focus is somewhere between where he's sitting and over here. And it maybe starts to look questionable near the edge over here. And maybe a little questionable, not really questionable, but but the question is, how do you get a color picture like this? This is the cool part. So here's his camera. It might not look like much, but I'm going to show you something cool. So basically, oh, damn it, they don't have the picture of the thing here. Oh, I got to get another picture. Okay, here it is. Is this it? I need to find a specific picture because I was reading about this the other day. Huh. Oh, there's Arvis. Yeah, okay, good. We're going to tune into him in a minute. I need to find a picture of his camera. Okay, here it is. This is it. This is exciting here. All right, so check this out here. So to get a color picture, it was one black and white photo plate with a red, blue, and green filter in front of it. When taking a picture, they would essentially drop the film into here, right? So when you put the film in, the front would be covered so it's not exposed to light. But as it's sliding through here, a cover would get removed. And as each of these color filters are passed in front of the frame, it would take first picture would get snapped and recorded over here. Second picture, as the next part passed through, it would also get snapped so the light would shine through, hit the green part of the plate, and then the blue part of the plate. And then to project it, you essentially need to shine light through 3 different slides, so to speak, and then recombine it. You might use a prism, you might use like a beam combiner. I don't know how they did it here. There's probably a picture of his projector here somewhere. And here it is. It's just like the old projectors in school when they used to watch movies in elementary school and had the 3 beams. So just like those old CRT projectors or whatever. And you see it right over here. You can see that that's how he did it. And basically, he would have to collimate or combine the beams of projected color light, and then that's how you get colors. So conversely, if you scanned all 3 pictures in their respective colors, you know, with the red, blue, so they're black and white images with a red or blue filter applied with light shining through it, and you scan them independently, you could then stack them together. And this is very similar to how I take pictures on my telescope using a black and white image sensor. So I hope you guys found that interesting. Let's get back to the chat. And that's a visual sign of what's used in movies for the longest time. Hyperreality sound, the sound that shouldn't go with the thing, but sounds so good you think it should. I dig that. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. Oh yeah, did I click on this? Oh yeah, I did click on this. Thanks, some person. I'm gonna check this out. I'm gonna subscribe to that channel too. I'm gonna analyze their stuff. I'm gonna analyze their work, and maybe I can learn something too. Because it did cross my mind. And here's the picture of the Russian picture if anybody wants to explore that. And do you guys want the link to the thing about the camera? I'll give you the link to the camera too, all right? There you go. And I lost the other link of the projector. Oh, here it is. But, you know, like, what is going on here? Single scale pyramid. What does that mean? Oh, I see. It takes more computation to do the, I can't see a difference between these 2 pictures at all. But anyway, shift mode matters. Huh. Oh, so this is how they digitally process it to get it to come out right. Okay, that's cool. And you can see, like, so basically this guy nerded out and made a detailed page talking about what he did to get the colors to align correctly on the, you know, the scans. Perhaps they're using some kind of method that helps automate the process when everything's said and done. And you can see, like, the green channel is partially cropped off, so that's why you have those color bars at the edge of some of these pictures. Pretty interesting. And some of these parts are not recorded in their entirety on some of the individual layers, or the cloud is off for some reason. It's pretty interesting. I also noticed that there was like rainbow colors next to the water, next to the parts of the lake, parts of the creek, I should say. Well, that's pretty cool. Warped image, original image. Oh, so they applied some kind of warping to correct for the issues, and that helps to bring everything back into alignment. And then this looks like they use some kind of method of detecting the optical flow, and then they can use that information to correctly, like, apply a corrective warping to it. That's pretty cool. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I think we're going to about wrap it up, so I'm going to quickly do a quick rundown here. Hey, what's up, awesome one? I'll have to read vote now. No, how could your PlayStation be dead? What PlayStation? It PlayStation 4? PlayStation 3? I believe we could, like, somehow beat up your PlayStation and fix it. LDP raid. Oh, I'm sorry, I was busy looking at old cameras. And Mike Wolf, how you doing? That's why you're here. You're raiding me. I gotta tune into LDP. I might reschedule my show next week so I could tune into Logan. And I could tune into Oris a little bit early, you know? It's 124 frames per second. You can't hide it. The argument I had with people that the Nintendo 64 can display a better image than the PS1. It can. It totally can. Like, that's hands down. It's hands down what the N64 can do. What the N64 can't do is store an enormous amount of music or store a ton of full motion video. I mean, if you could get a cartridge that could store more data, you certainly can do that. But for the prices of cartridges back then, and the fact that almost nobody owns a 64 disk drive, you know the deal. If you're talking frame by frame N64, no question. Oh yeah, for sure. There's no question. Color and sound. Which sound? Which sound? My voice sound? Oh, you talking about the video I played before when I hit mute? I might have muted that video at some point in the middle of playing it. I think. I don't know. I'm confused now. Glad you explained that, because I was about to ask when the hell you went there. Raid lights off. Lights off. Lights on. Oh, that's a commercial. I know the commercial. What up, Logan? I didn't add him to the stream elements thing yet. These guys do a fantastic job of different restorative videos. They do. Guess it's time for some popcorn. Poop, poop, poop. Never mind. Happy VD Day. Oh, today's Venereal Disease Day? Shit. I forgot to get my penicillin shot. When they scan the film at full detail, the upscaling would be incredible, right? I know. And that's like, I want to check out that museum archive, whatever that shit was, and explore the source material. But I'd imagine that guy did the best they could do with the source material at hand. If it's a Latin word and you don't know, say it with an accent that is slightly between French and Spanish. Oui. I see. That's, yeah, seriously though, that's kind of like what I was going for. I don't know why I have all this extra chat. Yeah, I swear I tried to scroll down before and none of these messages were coming up. Has anybody ever worked on old screen projectors for TVs that have the 3 different bulbs? Nightmare fuel. I have not, but I have a theory. So do they use separate picture tubes? Is that how they work? Like, or are they doing something else? Because I know about, but I know that there's 2 challenges, right? Focusing the separate beams correctly, and I can see what that would be like a pain in the ass. And adjusting 3 separate, projectors to be correctly tuned with one another. That's got to be crazy. Yeah, DJ, fix my PS4 with your brain psychic nexus nerd power. Well, first of all, dust your PlayStation 4, because I'm going to bet you've never dusted your PlayStation in the entire life cycle of it. Number 2, I don't know, pour some rubbing alcohol on the motherboard. That usually works. And 3, if you're adventurous, take it apart. If you're not adventurous, go to the gas station, right? And use the air compressor for the tires and just blow that shit out at the gas station. But if you don't want to risk messing up shit, you should probably take it apart to dust it. But I don't blame you if you want to avoid taking it apart, Raid. L is bug spraying us. Ah! No, not an endocrine disruptor. Just smack the dust out of the PS4, lol. I'm coming down the road. I looked it up. It's a GPU issue of connection. So, okay, that's easy. Dust it anyway. Then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap your PlayStation 4 in a towel. You're going to turn it on. You're going to leave it on as long as possible, wrapped in like a really thick towel. This is important. Make sure it's laying flat. Then, after it's been on for some time, you're going to turn off the PlayStation 4. You're going to let it sit. You're going to let it cool down slowly. And then just maybe it'll work for like another week or 2. The reason this works is because you're essentially heating up the soldering lead in order to do what they call reflowing. But maybe dusting it will do the trick. Maybe dusting it will remove some dust that is taking up moisture, that is creating a bad, connection or something like that, that's shorting something out. But really what you got to do is wrap it in a towel and cook it. Now, the proper way to do that would be to take apart the Xbox, take apart the PlayStation, cover up any components that you need to protect with some Mylar or foil, like the plastic stuff. But basically, you're going to take that PlayStation motherboard, you're going to put it in your oven. You're going to set the oven to 380 degrees for about, and let it run for about 8 minutes. So I think I forget if you're supposed to warm up the oven gradually or if you're supposed to warm up the oven first and then put the motherboard in. But essentially, once the motherboard is in the oven and it's at 380 degrees, Fahrenheit, you're going to let it sit for like 8 minutes or something like that. And then you're going to turn off the oven. You're not going to touch anything. You're going to let it cool down slowly. Then you're going to try it out after you reassemble it. And with some luck, the heat will have caused the bad connections that you're talking about to reflow. So if, let's say one of the soldering balls got dislodged or disconnected from the motherboard and the GPU and that's not working right, this will hopefully re-establish that connection, and when it cools down, of course, the soldering lead will once again re-solidify into a new solid connection. And this is literally why people wrapped Xboxes in towels back in the day, and this is why I put MacBook motherboards in the oven. It's interesting, and I'm not saying it's the best fix, but hey, it gets the job done sometimes. It's interesting that most storage is solid state now. Nintendo wanted to stick with cartridges. Well, So my problem with the cartridges, I can't find my cartridges. Like ever since I came back from San Antonio, I literally don't know where my freaking cartridges, man. I don't know where they are. I know they're somewhere here. I just don't know. So I got it maybe like when I'm rearranging the furniture here. Maybe I'll find them during that process. But man, I got a bunch of games on cartridges I can't find. And like I'm not partial to cartridges. My attitude is that like as long as they support downloading the games again, I'm good. When they stop supporting the games, I will mod my Nintendo and make sure that I have backup copies of the games I already bought. And maybe a few more. But until then, I'm perfectly content storing them on SD card. I'm perfectly content as long as my account doesn't get compromised. I can still sign into my Nintendo account to re-download them. I'm a happy camper. And the games that I bought on cartridge, I only bought them on cartridge because I got them as pre-owned games at GameStop, which is one of the reasons why people don't like that a lot of companies are forcing people to move away from physical media. It's because they like the option of being able to buy used games. Of course, the companies love having the option to force you to buy the games from them only, new or digitally new. And certainly they love having the option of preventing you from selling the games to other people. And ironically, they make it like, oh, you don't own the game. We can, our terms of service say we could, prevent you from downloading the game at any time. And it's like, well, you know what? They should definitely change it. Like, it says it in terms of service. But maybe when you buy a game on Amazon or from Sony, they shouldn't say buy. They should replace the word buy with, rent or lease. Because if they're going to tell you that terms of service say that you don't own the game, you're leasing it, then they should be committed to not putting the word purchase or buy onto the page where you're purchasing the leased game. Because it's deceptive. And why won't they do it preemptively? Because they know that they want people to think they own the game long enough that they can pull the rug out from under them later on. At least that's my speculation. What's this to say about I have a 3-foot nylon screwdriver just to work on old school... Yeah, true. You do have 3-foot nylon screwdrivers. Do you really need a 3-foot screwdriver? Can you do like a 2-foot screwdriver? Okay, you know what? I'm not going to argue. You probably do need a 3-foot screwdriver. I don't understand how you can melt the screwdriver. If it's an insulator, is the voltage just that high? I once blew my inner tube out at the gas station. I've done that too. I totally done that. I've done that with a CO2 inflator. I've done that at the gas station. I've learned my lesson. I also carry spare inner tubes now, so it's a non-issue. So, like if it did happen, I have spare inner tubes on hand. I'm kidding about something. I don't know what. Once it's out of the oven, no, I'm not kidding. No, I'm not kidding. I'm dead serious. And once it's out of the oven, you'll have a wonderful cake. It's true, and you can play games on it too. Hello, Stephanie Cruz. Good to see you. PS4 Monogotti recipe. I like that he's spelling it correctly. Remember weeks ago I had to spend time looking that up. Sometimes I don't get when you're being ironic or not. I'm dead serious. Yeah, I put MacBook motherboards in the oven, and they worked afterwards. And I think I'd had like a solid 1 in 3 success rate. Dead serious. As for the Xbox, I bought a broken Xbox on eBay when it first came out, 360. When it came in the mail, it came in a box that was no bigger than an Xbox with no bubble wrap. It worked. Upon opening the box, it worked. Then it started giving me red lights of death. So then I wrapped it in a towel as per instructions, and that did squeeze out like another week or two of functionality from that Xbox. So that's true. It's the easiest solder refix. Nowhere near optimal. It's not nowhere near the optimal way of doing things. Now, you could use a hot air gun and do it in a targeted manner. You can, do something more thorough where you remove the chip and you reball it. But, I know that takes real skill. And there's not many shops that will do that level of work locally. And the ones that do, like, there was one guy who did it in Manhattan that I know of. But, like, that guy left New York. He was like, he went to Arizona and just does whatever business he's doing there now on top of content creation. You need organization. Get some bookcases and storage bins. How do you know I need to be organized? Oh, yeah, you're right. I did indicate that. You're right. I need more bookcases and more storage bins, you mean? Well, I do need some specific types. Just a simple fast remelt. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's like not really that big of an issue sometimes. Suppose it don't matter. As next year's support shuts down a new game's are being made for PS, and no new games for PS4. That's true. All the more reason to get it PS4, modify it, and put bootlegs on it. Also, all of the free games every month changed to only free with a subscription. Cheap bastards. Hey, what's up, DJ Play Nice? How you doing? It's good to see you, man. It sounds counterintuitive, but you know tech, so I trust you. Yeah, I mean, like, here's why, Stephanie. If you look up the factories that produce printed circuit board components or that put components onto a printed circuit board, that's essentially what they're doing. So, like, for example, like if you look at the bottom of like a modern, microchip that's like directly on a board, they're using what they call surface mount devices. And I guess we could demonstrate this here. Now, this is a GPU that has two sides. So anyway, I'm going to record the rest of the video of the topic I was talking about. For the record, we are stopping the video recording at the part where I was going to start talking about rate control over here. And unfortunately, I easily distract myself, but we're having a good time here. So yeah, for the benefit of me, the editor, I must continue recording at this part here. We covered everything except for rate control. And for everyone watching, in a quick nutshell, basically what it comes down to is you can use a constant bit rate and you can use a really high number to ensure perfect quality. But the problem is that whether you're doing nothing or something, whether you have a blank screen or a first-person shooter game, the file size is going to be the same. By picking this setting, a constant quantizer, or essentially it's a constant rate factor, the higher this number is, the more compressed your video is, and the smaller the file is, and the lower the quality. Picking a maximum of 23 is acceptable by most people's standards. Typically, most people don't need to go below 20, and you definitely don't need to go below 18. I chose to stick to 20, and I find the quality is good. By using this setting, if I'm recording a picture of my screen for 1 hour, it might come out to like 700 megabytes. If I'm recording me playing a Starfighter game or shoot 'em up for like 20 minutes, that could easily come out to 20 gigs. So yeah, a video that is 1/3 the length of a 700 megabyte video of my screen doing nothing can be like more than triple the size of a video that is triple the length. And with that being said, we will explore this in greater detail in a subsequent recording that I will hopefully find a way to integrate into a cohesive singular video. End recording. All right, so getting back to the fun part of the stream now. Thank you for tolerating me, guys. Wait, which OBS window do I need to close? Okay, I need to close this one. All right, good. Uh-oh, I lost my window. Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, the camera. Yeah, okay, hang on. This is what I was doing. Let me just get this on my screen. I'm going to show you something, Stephanie, and everyone else who's watching right now. Okay. Okay, so this is the back of a video card. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be showing you the cool part, right? I'm not going to be showing you the other side of the board over here. But what I will show you is that everything here that's soldered here is a surface mount device. As you might know, some circuit boards have holes in them, and sometimes you'll buy these like components where like it's got little pokey things in there, and you put them through these tiny holes, and then you apply the soldering lead to the other side. Surface mount devices are different than through the hole components because essentially, like if you're doing it by hand, you might like have a little empty space over here where you might put a little paste underneath this, like solder paste. And essentially you're going to be putting solder lead on either side of this big black thing. But these other components are way too tiny to solder by hand. Although there are times where you can solder them by hand, and I've done it on stuff similar to this. But the way you would do this in a factory environment would be that they would have essentially a machine or some kind of process for putting all of these things exactly where they belong. Right? And any chip that has like soldering lead next to it, either the soldering lead would be like pre-applied or the soldering lead would be applied to the board before the component is put down. In fact, you can see over here, we got these little like solder pads here. So essentially you'd have pads like these next to these legs. And so all they'd have to do is apply a little paste and put the chip on top of that pad. And then, you know, the legs would line up with each of these little, you know, silver spots. And then maybe they put a little flux on it. I forget. I guess they put the flux on first. Now, flux is just a liquid goo, and it helps to spread the heat around. It helps because it reduces the melting point of the soldering lead, meaning the soldering lead remains malleable at lower temperatures. It also prevents it from oxidizing, because when you heat up the soldering lead rapidly, without the flux being on it, it can oxidize more readily, which can create additional challenges. But when you're soldering by hand, using flux will ensure that the lead kind of sticks to the areas where you want it to stick. In this case, the bottom line is that once you have the solder already on the board, and you have all of the components that are supposed to be on the board pasted or placed onto the correct parts of the board, this whole thing goes into an oven in one shot. It gets heated up all at once for a very brief period of time. Any component that is not presently permanently soldered to this is going to be on top of soldering lead that's going to melt while touching the component. It's going to cool down. It's going to harden. And now you're going to have components that are like solidly affixed to that. So that's how they manufacture these, how they mass produce motherboards, GPUs, etc. And this is why when you need to reflow, you can put it in an oven. Now, of course, I owned a soldering iron that came with a hot air workstation, and it was basically a device with a hot air blower. It was like you had a soldering iron, you had this handheld device that would blow hot air at a set temperature, and you can heat up the board. And sometimes if you were like redoing just a specific part and you had no way of directly touching it with the soldering iron for lack of precision, you could use the hot air gun to heat it up. But what I found was that when I had to modify a GPU by removing a couple of these and replacing a couple of these, using a hot air blower would just knock everything around. And maybe that's because I wasn't using solder paste, but I found it easier to just put a dot of flux on there and just hit it with the fine tip, like poke, poke, and everything was copacetic by doing it that way. And you'd be surprised how small of a capacitor you can work on by hand. I think the smallest capacitor I worked on was, about comparable to the size of these guys right over here. And you can see the size of my finger for reference. It's so small that my finger is out of focus above it. So I hope that helps. But no, you definitely cannot put it in a microwave. Typically, it's easier to use the microwave, right? But in this context, the metal components would just reflect all of that microwave radiation back, almost like bouncing a radar back. And essentially, it would create sparks. It would potentially fry the magnetron in your microwave. It might cause an actual fire. So yeah, you cannot put this in your microwave, Stephanie. I watched the guys slip a metal screwdriver onto a board, melted the screwdriver to the board in properly about a second. Yes, 3-foot nylon screwdriver. So I gotta look into that. I gotta read up on that, figure out like how and why that does that. That was part of A+ certification? Damn. Man, they made A+ certification is boring today, man. Let me tell you. Beautiful explanation. You can make it yourself, but how big does it need to be? The oven? I don't know. As big as the oven in the kitchen. You could buy like small scale versions of that type of equipment, or you could buy the large scale equipment that they actually use, or you could have someone in China do it for you, probably for cheaper than someone stateside. And then they also have like new companies like PCBWay.com. I'm not sponsored by them, but they can call me if they want to sponsor me. And they do like on-demand stuff now. I don't know. I guess they got the machinery to like cut boards and do like small batches, because in the past, to get a good price, you'd have to like, get a lot of them done. And what you would do is you'd get the circuit boards made up, or you'd etch out your own boards at home. You'd ship them to China along with the components. And sometimes people would send like separate capacitors or separate resistors. But the problem is that if they got to put them on by hand, they're either going to charge you more, or they're going to end up hating you for doing it. So, let me see if I can find an example of a cassette. So this isn't really a cassette, but you can see how these come on here. Now, I don't know if these can go into a machine, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a machine that could take these in and automatically put them on a board. But like, see, you got that right there. That's not just so you could pick them off by hand. That sometimes it's for a machine. But what I was looking for was like SMD resistors cassette. And maybe I'm using the wrong term. Maybe it's a reel. Yeah, here we are. And you can see like they come in these reels, and these reels literally fit in the machine. So they do have like when I bought them and they come on this little piece of paper with little holes in it. And all I had to do is cut the paper and like remove the tiny little resistors that were so tiny that if I breathed on them in the wrong way, they'd fall on the floor and they'd be lost forever. So I found out if I needed 4 of them, buy 20 of them. And you can see how like the way this cassette is made up and the way that there's holes in the paper, like even those little black things, whatever they are, any service mount device can be put inside of like a reel like this. And the punched holes are there so that the machine can feed it through and distribute the component to whatever part. And you can see that this might be how it would look when it was loaded onto a machine. And then from there it would go to, you know, the part picker or whatever they call it, and then the oven would handle the rest. And that's my oversimplification of how that works. But you can see all these various examples of these types of components here. See, these are resistors without the legs on them, for example. So, yeah, I hope that is interesting. And I don't know what this is. I'm just kind of looking it over. But you get the idea. A little robot makes their design smaller because it can make it smaller. The technology isn't necessarily that much better sometimes. Yeah, true. Evercode CE. Oh, is that your PlayStation? Good. I'll make note of that. Got it. We'll read that later on. Solder, slip, or run is exactly what makes it all possible. Oh, is that like the like flux? Is that the same thing? And you know what? I might borrow that line and give it to PD. PD, the robot, be like, error code CE363293. And then, I don't know, start spitting out toast at the screen or something crazy like that. The system did crash when I was playing a game. It went to a load screen, then shut down. Of course, this error can be caused by the server maintenance. I wonder, maybe if it was in the middle of an update and the server failed to upload, but yeah, I'd have to read up on that. I mean, I'm sure you Googled the error code already. I'll certainly Google it on my own time. Loads of fun to solder magnet wire to SMD LEDs, light emitting diodes. Magnet wire. Interesting. That does sound kind of handy. I would think that the heat would ruin the magnet in no time, but I guess not. Okay, we're gonna raid our friend Arvis218. At least anybody who wants to raid him. I'm gonna raid him. PlayStation Network fired a bunch of California PlayStation employees, and maybe that the crash affected this. Well, let's see. I know I said I wouldn't Google it, but I'm gonna Google it real quick just because now you got me. PlayStation 4. I'm gonna use the AI Google answer here. PlayStation 4 error code 36 blah 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 indicates an issue with the system software, meaning you likely need to update your PS4 to the latest version by going to System Settings, Software Update. Now, can you get the System Settings right now? Because if you can't, I may have a recommendation for you. If the problem persists, you may need to try a system reset or contact PlayStation support. Yeah, right. Nobody's contact PlayStation support. Sometimes a simple restart can do the safe mode option. If you can't actually try updating the system software through safe mode. Initialize. If the issue persists, back up your saved data and initialize the factory settings. So you got to go to a menu to do that. Can you even get to the menu right now? Because if you can't, this requires definitely post-stream research. Oh, that's okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, I think I took a screenshot. I took a screenshot of it. And you have it on the stream anyway, right? So I could screen cap it off via replay. But yeah, I know we can get to that. We can find that. We can work on that. Let's see here. That was Monday. Members Appreciation Day. Maybe that was Tuesday. I forget. But then we go to the stream here. And I asked for either a turtle or a dog. Let's see. Was mine before or after the bikini? Oh yeah, there's a Gundam. Who asked for the Gundam? Was it me or someone else? It might have been me. I think it was me. It's gotta be. I think that was what I asked for. It looked like a pretty good. It looked like that looks like correct Gundam there. I mean, that's a Gundam. I definitely took a screenshot of that one. Oh, that's cool. And we could do a time lapse if I, download this and play it back and edit in such a way that the time lapse. That'd be kind of cool if we time lapse that. Obviously, we'd be zooming in and cropping based on whatever resolution is left here. Was it the Gundam? No. What did I ask? Oh, the penguin. The penguin. Yeah, the penguin. And the penguin comes a little bit later, I think. Or did it come earlier? I think it came earlier. I mean, I watched it live, right? So it's got to be, even if you didn't screen, there it is. Yeah, I took a screenshot because I wanted to send it to Punk Waddle. Yeah, we can time lapse this too. The Gundam came out nice. I remember you were like, "Oh, that Gundam is too complex." So like, okay, draw a penguin, and then you drew a Gundam and a penguin, which is cool. Yeah, look at it. We got a penguin and a sheriff star, and these people didn't like it at all. And then with the Gundam, that's what we did. So because the people, these snobs at the art gallery didn't like the Gundam, they we decided let's try red, blue, and green colors on the Gundam, right? Because it's got more color. Because we figured that maybe at least I figured that the people here would like the color based on what you were indicating about them. And yeah, apparently the Gundam was a lot more popular than the Penguin because it has more color. At least that's my working theory. I don't know if that's the reason, but yep, that's what we got. PSN was down last Friday. I'll upload it later. Word. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you need me to skim through it and capture it, I might even capture it, Anyway, 36393. It's usually, is there a user connection error or a distributor's server connection error? You can force an update. Well, can you I just want to know one thing, Awesome. Can you even get into the settings menu? Like, do you get that error message when you open a game, or do you get that error message when you turn it on? That's like my only question. Go, L Gundam Ranger. I had a funny joke on Pacific 414. What was it? Mighty Morphin. They were doing something funny, and I made it a parody song. Yeah, it did. It sold well. Apparently, it got 2,000. So yeah, Once again, where did I put the link? Here it is. So yeah, I'm curious, Awesome One, if you heard my message, I definitely want to know if the error message comes up when you turn on your PlayStation, or only when you're opening a game, or what? Like, you can get into the menu, you could certainly try to force another update. If not all is lost. Worst case scenario, there is a process where you can download an update, or I can look into it, but I've done it on a PlayStation 3. I would download an update from the Sony website, put it on a USB flash drive. It would be a .bin file, binary, and then you would basically like turn on the PlayStation with the flash drive plugged in, and you hold down a certain button, and then it would read the back. It would read the image file. It's like a .bin image, a disk image, off of the flash drive, and it would use that to run an update. Okay. It's back, thank God. So settings or something now. Yeah, probably. Okay. Yeah, now be careful. You don't want to completely reformat your stuff without having a backup, or without being sure that the data you do wipe out is backed up, but I'm glad that works. So don't put it in the oven. Don't put it in the oven. I finished the initial draft for my anime music video. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I was curious, like, when that would be, or if you had a plan, or if there's anything. I was trying to think, like, do I have the ability to do that? It's like, not really. So yeah, I can't wait to see what you come up with. I may want to change things more, but it looks okay now. Cool, good. I'm glad. I look forward to that. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a real treat right there. So anyway, oh, wrong screen. Oh, I gotta. Excuse my yawning. So anyway, we're going to go ahead. We're going to tune into Aorus. But before we tune into Aorus 218, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I get the correct link. instead of getting Link, I wish we could get a Zelda. That would be way nicer, right? I would love to get a Zelda instead of a Link. But anyway, that's a corny joke. Yes, do put it in the microwave anyway, just to be safe, to make sure. To make sure the PlayStation is at optimal performance, run an update, and then for good measure, put it in the oven. If the update doesn't work, put it in the oven to ensure that the update works afterwards. Because, you know, Wi-Fi works off of microwave transmission. So it stands to be reasoned if you put the PlayStation in the microwave oven, that's going to enhance your Wi-Fi signal. So do that. Oh, yay, I'm a member. I can't wait. I'll look at that in a moment. And that means I can watch it, right? You don't want me to play that, right? You don't want me to play that now, right? I mean, I'm not going to play it now, but like, if you want me to play it now, I might. But other than that, I definitely look forward to watching it after the stream. In the meantime, I do want to advise you all to tune in to Aris218. We're going to raid him right now. We're going to raid him like the bug spray. And then I'm going to... Excuse me. Oh, I need to stretch. I need to get up and walk around. So anyway, does anyone here who is present have any questions, comments? I do. Oh, I could play it. I could play it. All right. Okay. For the last official activity of this stream, we're going to play a video. And I'm going to pause it. We're going to put it on my right side monitor. And we're going to pick the maximum resolution. We're going to unmute the audio. We're going to check the OBS window. And I'm going to blow my nose real quick.
Three, 2, 1, let's go!
Step into our world, it's a pixel dream. Retro vibes and magic on every screen. Telling tales with a wink and a smile. Stay with me and laugh for a while. High scores rise and hearts on fire. Every word lifts us higher. Adventure calls, are you ready to go? I'll lead the way and let it flow. Cuteness overload, sparkle in my eyes.
That's cool.
Weaving little stories under neon skies. Level up the love, it's our time to shine.
That's Elf.
LCX, forever divine. Heroes and dreams, I'll bring them to life. Plot twists, turns, and a hint of strife. Pixel perfect tales just for you. Happy endings always come true. High scores rise and hearts on fire. Every word lifts us higher. Adventure calls, are you ready to go? I'll lead the way and let it flow. Cuteness overload, sparkle in my eyes. Weaving little stories under neon skies. Level up the love, it's our time to shine. LCX forever divine. Heroes and dreams, I'll bring them to life. Plot twists, turns, and a hint of strife.
That's certainly
Pixel
funny.
perfect tales just for you. Happy endings
worries.
always come true. Happy endings always come true. High scores rise and hearts on fire. Every word lifts us higher. Adventure
well, we're good
calls, are
then.
you ready to go? I'll lead the way and let it flow. Cuteness overload, sparkle in my eyes. Weaving little stories under neon
Cool.
skies. Level up the love, it's our time to shine. LCX forever divine.
I mean, I could cut the opening short so that we can make people tune in to watch the rest of it. But I will finish it out. It's only 10 seconds.
Forever divine. Oh, forever divine.
I just want to say I like the Halloween costume. Oh yeah, and the picture is cool too. I gotta save a copy of that. Because a lot of us were honored to be on that picture there. You know, named by name. We got Slim Nim in there. We got me. But when I look, I just want to find a Batman thing real quick. That thing was cool. I remember that shit was hilarious on Halloween. See, like Batman and the Judge Dredd helmet. I mean, it's a Batman helmet. It's not Judge Dredd, but it says LC, Lord Cloud. So anyway, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for all watching. And where's Lady Mister's message? I think there we go. Take care, everyone. And thank you, Elle, for sharing out the video and allowing me to play that. Now, what I want is, I lost the hyperlink again. But I just want to drop a hyperlink so we can raid our friend, Orvis. And to do that, I'm going to copy the link again. And for anybody who's interested, I would humbly ask you to consider raiding Orvis218, our good friend. And Stephanie Chris, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Lady Mist. Thank you, Elf. Thank you, Awesome One. Good luck with your PlayStation 4. Thank you, Slim Nim. And, everyone else who tuned in, including DJ Play Nice. And some person. And that covers almost everyone. I'm sure we're missing a lot. Oh yeah, Low Spec Linux Gaming. He's got a fire channel. He's got a great channel right there. And James. And David Glenn. And I believe we had the Peter Venkman fan site. We had Punk Waddle, whom I have to send that penguin picture to. We had Pacific 414. He's got a great channel right there too, like we got Dude McMahon. Oh, I didn't say hi to Dude McMahon, but I thank Dude McMahon for telling me I was on mute. And Floral from Under a Rock. And Fabric Folds of lovely fabric. And yes, that was the game Shadow of Mordor. And Pop Culture Mechanic. He's got a great channel too. You guys should check him out. And Amber, who is not in my Stream Elements chat bot, but she's fantastic. You saw the video of me talking like Darth Vader on her stream. I want to thank you all for hanging out. And once again, the link is above if you want to raid our friend Orvis. And with that being said, for anybody watching on the replay, if you have any questions, comments, ideas, or concerns, please leave a comment.